What's going on? 6 o'clock. Good morning. Happy Friday from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Titans take to Nissan Stadium this weekend again on Saturday. Lee Company countdown to kickoff at 3 o'clock. Titans radio takes over at 5. Brian Callahan said that Malik Willis would get the start at quarterback. Callahan also provided his rationale behind not playing the starters.
No, our starters won't play. There may be a couple of guys maybe that play, but our starters will not play. Obviously, 2 really hard, physical, heavy days of work for them. No reason to put them in the game. We got our controlled work here against their ones. Really, that's the benefit of the joint practices is the amount you get against these guys. It's controlled. But no, our starters, should not expect to see many starters, if any at all.
A monster 24 hours for the Atlanta Falcons, first trading a third-round pick to the Patriots for Matt Judon, then signing the best remaining free agent, Justin Simmons, to a one-year deal worth up to $8 million. Simmons now being added to a defensive backfield with A.J. Terrell and Jesse Bates. And in Buffalo, Bills Pro Bowl linebacker Matt Milano, who left Tuesday's practice injured, tore his bicep, and is now out indefinitely. Milano will undergo surgery on his torn biceps with the hope that he could return later in the season, possibly in December. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Friday morning, you made it to the end of the week here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW 104.5 The Zone in studio, previewing Tennessee Titans, Seattle Seahawks, preseason game number 2. We're just a couple weeks away from Tennessee football, 2 of them to be exact. College football will be played in 8 days. In week 0, we have made it, boys and girls. 615-737-1045 is how you join us. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, Will Bowling. Streaming live at 1045 The Zone TV on Facebook Live, Twitch, and YouTube.
Twitch, please.
YouTube, please. Friday, August 16th. How we doing?
We're good, man. You speaking of we're that close away to the college football kickoff. I had one of my neighbors. He's one of those like old school cats. I can tell, just how he is. Walks his dog with no leash and all those types of things. So I was doing my neighborhood walk, right, getting some low impact cardio in. Sure. And he was like, hey, we're about a week or so away. And I was excited, like, yeah, because I know he's a Vols fan, right? He's like, no. I was like, what? He was like, by the end of next week, the milk in the store will be expiration date away from the kickoff time. And I said, hey, you're a different type of fan, okay? Yep. You time it up to food expiration, okay? Like, you a different type of Vols fan, and I'm here for it, okay? You're a different type of college football fan. And expiration date away on the milk, okay, from kickoff. And that made me feel so good.
That is old school and very impressive.
Yeah, that made me feel so good. My mile walk run was done in about 17 minutes, okay? It's fair. Is that fair?
You've got some interesting neighbors.
I do got some interesting
It's like
neighbors.
You could do your own reality show.
Man,
Moan's Block.
We nice in there, okay? In Carter Creek.
Seems
we
like
decent in Carter Creek, man. That's all I'm saying.
That's what it's called? Very nice.
Yeah. Well, it took me a while before realizing, because most neighborhoods, we boo ghetto, okay? Boost ghetto is what we are. We bougie with a little bit
Ain't
of ghetto.
Nothing ghetto about where you are in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I've been right around exactly this place you're talking about. I'm not going to give any more details because I don't want you to just tell everybody where you live live on the radio either. But what are we doing?
We boost ghetto is what we are. We got a gate, okay?
Sure.
But the gate ain't got no name in the neighborhood, all right? So it took me...
Okay.
Come on.
You are not right this morning at 6:04 a.m. describing where you live now as anything remotely close to being ghetto.
That is kind of funny, though.
Let me explain. The gate probably needs to be replaced, but it's ours, okay? I
You accept
currently
it.
got my name on the
bragging
call.
camp.
Well, let me explain it to you. We have our name on the call box, but I ain't
Okay.
got a local number. So if you hit my name on the call box, it's not gonna open up for you. Okay.
Are you
So if you
it
need to
just doesn't go
speed
anywhere.
through the gate really quick and follow someone,
Yeah.
is it easy for your Chelsea boots to make the pedal go to the floor
goodness.
more quickly, or is that harder to do
It depends.
when you've got those strapped on?
Man, it's easy with the Chelsea boots,
Okay.
okay, because you
They
fly.
got a tip on them.
I was this close to just leaning in and wearing them this morning, just so you know. I was that close. I
Rand
thought
Carthon
about
might
it.
have shown up at the studio this morning and reprimanded you.
Thought
I wish
about
you could
that.
wear them to the game, but I know that's uncomfortable. That would never
Kayla,
happen.
Those are get ups and
I
sit
know,
downs. Okay.
right? That would never work.
Yeah, like legitimately, those are get up and sit downs, man.
Sounds like you're not as tough as you used to be in your playing days. That's
Hey,
crazy.
I'm complaining about the heat now. Okay, I'm cringing at big time hits and stuff.
You
like,
could prove yourself by just wearing the boots.
I could.
I know you could trick them like Bert and I did to you yesterday, and you could just wear them for like too soon.
I'm still not over y'all. I'm still not over y'all.
You could wear them just to welcome GM Rand Carthon into the stadium,
No.
Bring
and
a pair
then
of
you just
backup
take
shoes.
them off.
Yeah, I will bring some backup shoes. I'll wear them in.
Joke with him
Yeah,
Do
but
it.
yeah, I might wear some backup shoes.
for sure.
Y'all in this snake
Hookahs.
yesterday. I'm surprised Will didn't go off with me yesterday, but they didn't scare you.
I
They
didn't see
scared
it.
me.
He wasn't there yet.
Then he hung
That's
it
why-
off
I just
the
heard y'all
doggone
literally
tent.
screaming.
Yeah, well, y'all, it was just me, okay?
No, I heard all of you
Oh,
screaming.
well, yeah, it was the gag was up at that point.
615-737-1045. We are Jansen Jackson days away from Tennessee football.
Look at that.
It's my favorite thing to do is just pick a random player, not pick like the first player that everyone else comes to mind. When's the last time you thought about Jansen Jackson?
It's a great name.
Will him be
Been a
up probably when he signed?
He's a good safety.
Yeah, I ain't mad
like
at
his
it
name.
at all. I'm not
15.
mad at it. What number was he?
15.
15?
So it's 15 days away. So it's Jansen Jackson days away from Tennessee football.
Was Brew McCoy days away.
Not anymore.
Yeah, he's number 5 now.
See, that's the problem with the NCAA football video game is that they have all the old numbers before everyone switched. So I have now learned the wrong numbers for all the Tennessee players this year. Like Squirrel White's got a new number. Brew McCoy's got a new number. Like half the team has a new number.
Yeah.
Do
this
they
season.
fix that midway through
Yeah, they
whenever
will.
they go do their little
They will.
Yeah.
repairs?
Because they haven't even put the smoky gray jerseys in
okay.
the video game yet either.
Okay.
I typed in Jansen Jackson name.
Oh, is he arrested?
I'd much rather not talk
Yeah.
about his situation.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Okay, now I need to type
I was
it
like,
in.
let me look him up real quick. I'm clicking it in. It was
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Anyway, it's
Bump, bump,
Jawan
bump.
Jennings days away from football time in Tennessee.
Nick Westbrook
All
Akina
right.
days away.
Yes.
Here we go.
There we go.
Man.
Dang.
Yeah, I remember this whole little ordeal. We'll leave that alone, Will. But yes, old Brew McCoy days away from football time in Tennessee. I am excited for the Vols, though. We got Hubs on today, and I'm ready to act a fool with him. Play some trap music for him today, buddy. How about that?
Oh,
Can
you
do
could
that?
play the new Post Malone country album that is now
Post got a
released.
new album out today?
I wonder if
he
Brent
just
would
released
like
one.
Post Malone.
Yeah, he's done one basically late summer, 3 summers in a row. His 12 Carat Toothache was in 2022.
Carrot toothache.
Austin was last year. It was on my birthday when it came out, so that's why I remember it.
Okay.
And then this year, August 16th, let me just run through the features. We've got Tim McGraw, Hank Williams Jr., Morgan Wallen, Blake Shelton, Dolly Parton, Brad Paisley, Luke Combs, Laney Wilson, Jelly Roll, Ernest, Sierra Farrell, another one with Luke Combs, Chris Stapleton, Hardy, Billy Strings, and then 3 songs that are no features. He just brought together all the boys and girls.
Wow.
A couple of
Yeah,
girls.
he did.
Very excited. I listened to 2 songs on the way. Very good. The one with Tim McGraw is excellent. The one with Brad Paisley's good. I'm just a Post Malone fanatic, so I'm going to love anything that's on it. But yeah, it looks really good.
That's how I was with Young Jeezy in the early 2000s.
I loved Young
Jeezy.
Jeezy.
Could have dropped anything, and I was on top of it. You hear me? It didn't matter on the features. UGK, I'm like that with. Was like that with. Yeah, it's a few artists. Jay-Z
Trying
could
to think
drop
of
whatever.
one
Oh, yeah, whatever
Young Jeezy
album.
song.
And then what?
If you're looking for me, I'll be on top.
And then what?
It was Put On, Young Jeezy?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Put On.
There you go. I've found my one. That's all I need.
Air Forces.
In my Air Forces.
Yeah, well-
Chevys, a drop top Porsches. I couldn't.
All right, we're going to go way too far down this
couldn't
rabbit
walk
hole.
a mile off in my Air Forces.
Yeah.
Come on, Will. My
Tomorrow.
voice is raspy right now.
It is
too.
raspy. I
In
noticed that this
Nissan
morning.
Stadium, Brian Callahan tells us Malik Willis will start for the Tennessee Titans. Thoughts?
Necessary. I'm glad. Although I got some other thoughts too that I don't like about why. I ain't gonna say why I don't like about his starting, but I love to see Will Levis considering how practice ended yesterday.
Couldn't agree more.
I think when I heard that, the media all kind of was not surprised by any means that Malik was going to start the game because Brian Callahan has mentioned that it could be mixed up throughout the preseason with him and Mason Rudolph. But you kind of noticed Malik Willis going with the twos yesterday. And that's when you thought, okay, maybe there's a plan for this preseason game. I like it for the most part, because why not get an opportunity? And you know what Mason Kinsey is, or Mason. I got to stop with that. I need him off the team for that reason.
You're not acting like it. You're not acting like it's
I am
Friday
taking
today,
shots
man.
at Kinsey this morning, not because he deserves it, because I screw up whenever he still remains on the roster, calling Mason Rudolph that. But no, I think we know what Mason Rudolph is as a quarterback, and while he didn't have his best day yesterday, like a lot of other guys, I think it's now time for Malik at least to get some work with those twos and really show if he's had some development, which I think he has.
Some early work. And the other thing, too, is the protection be a little bit better also. That's what you're also asking for whenever you trying to give a guy an opportunity with no excuses, right? With the threes, I mean, there is a lot of hit and miss when it comes down to protection, the flow of the offense, run plays. Like there's a lot of that you'd expect.
Yep.
Better opportunity for success if you go with the twos and some of the ones in this upcoming game.
You heard the update from Robert Walsh off the top of the show that do not expect any starters to play. You okay with no rookies? None of the rookie starters? No J.C. Latham?
I need it.
No Tavondre Sweat? Not even Dylan Radins in there?
I need it, man.
I need it too.
I would like the Dylan Radins-Andrew Rupsich battle to continue at the very least.
Yeah.
If any starter is going to play, for me, it's Dylan Radins.
I still think seeing J.C. Latham out there, and you don't have to play him that much, maybe a series or two even. I think he's still in the works of going up against, different defenses, and we saw him the last couple of days. He had his moments, and then he had some struggles. I think he held his own for the most part, but I would like to see him just continue to get those live reps.
Yeah. I want to see more live reps too, but again, coaches have a different plan. I don't understand this one. Again, readjusting to what the new normal in preseason is as far as playing guys, it's still new to me. It really is. So if coach said it's fine, it's fine. It's just that ending practice the way it did yesterday, I wasn't pleased when I realized, we're in practice.
15 minutes early. They said it kind of made up for the first day, which they went about a half hour over. Guys were tired out there, and you could kind of see it in the body language at the end of practice. Guys just kind of looked like they were dragging a little bit. But then in my eyes, I don't know, Ramon, you tell me this, I'd get a little bad taste in my mouth if I left practice like that.
Oh, they did. He did.
Let's talk about it coming up next. 615-737-1045. Brent Hubs at 7:20 this morning. Steve Palazzolo, our good friend who has been at practice the last 2 days, at 8:20. Stock up and stock down in hour 4, and a big Thursday practice report coming up next.
It's Ramon Foster for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Letting you know, man, summer's over for most of us, all right? And it's time to get ready for school. Even though the kids are headed back to school, you can leave the homework to Hiller. This month, enjoy the back-to-school savings with offers like $99 drain cleaning special. You can get $500 off select high-efficiency HVAC systems and new tankless water heaters where that water get instantly hot. Man, the efficiency of it is amazing. They also are offering up $1,000 off whole home generators. And y'all know we live in an area where power can go out because of weather and storms. and such. So get over to Hiller, man. Get more details on their website at happyhiller.com.
Ramon, Kayla, and Will, RKW 104.5 The Zone, Friday, and we're acting like it. Join the F&M Bank chat on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/1045 The Zone TV. That is where you join Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, and myself, Will Bowling. How concerned are we about the Titans' offense after a bad finish to practice yesterday?
It just wasn't an ideal situation to be in. I think the coach facilitated a game-like scenario to where whatever you do, you reap the consequences of it. You throw a completion, you get those 7 yards. You have a sack, we're bringing the ball back. So it was real. It was a little rhyme.
I heard that there.
It was interesting seeing the body language of the folks on the sideline whenever Levis threw that pick. Like, I saw J.C. Latham walk off looking for another one, and you just saw coaches and players. Is that it?
So essentially what happened, and to explain the procedure of practice to those of you who might be unfamiliar, at the end of practice, the Titans and Seahawks alternated, like you kind of would in a game, a 2-minute period. So the Seahawks starting offense went against the Titans starting defense. They did not score against the Titans defense in that red zone period. They thought they had a touchdown, but it was called back for a holding penalty. Yeah. And then the Titans get up there and one pass, interception. So in a lot of practices, you would get the ball back to the ones, allow them to keep working within that 2-minute period because they had just thrown a pick on the first play of that period. That is not the case in this practice. They just went on to the next group. And so then the Seahawks second offense came out, then the Titans second offense, and the ones in a live team period yesterday got one throw, one rep, and it was an interception.
And that's all coaches, talk about in this setting right here. So we got to get as many reps as we possibly can. So it's a lot of psychological things I think that happen after this. For me, is one, it makes Will Levis understand the weight of what his decisions are in these moments. I think his teammates feel it too, as far as like we got to be better. So it makes you go to the locker room and say certain things, but it also hinders development, I guess, true reps when you have that type of play happen too. So there's a lot of things I took from that one play, right? Mine was, and this is where it can get kind of construed, right? And the waters get a little muddy and it gets a little gray for me as far as just black and white. Is there's conversation, of course. Well, it's not conversation. I think it's known that Mason Kansas and Will Levis are good buddies, right? Mm-hmm. And in that moment, whether that play was designated to go to Mason Kinsey, I don't think it should have in that moment. That's where the quarterback of Will Levis, to me, got to take another step and say, know my personnel. Mason Kinsey's going against Devin Witherspoon, who had a bad day on Wednesday. And I'd say from the get-go of the practice yesterday, he showed up. Good. He bounced back in a major way, I thought, yesterday. So understanding that players want their get-back, and the guy that you have, Mason Kinsey, I don't think is the fastest guy with what you're asking him to do, but you got a top 5 pick in Devin Witherspoon where the awareness of Darrelle Revis is over there. We're not throwing against Revis Island. And the way that route was somewhat undercut and the way Devin Witherspoon just honestly ran the route for Mason Kinsey for him, or at least sat down on the route, is where Will Levis in that moment, to me, I want to see make a better quarterback decision. Like, I like the ball going to the sideline and the dink and dunk and understanding I can trust my guys, but when we're in a competitive game-like situation for our team and we're the starters not playing on Saturday, I need as many reps as I possibly can. So worry level, Will, probably about a 5.5 just on a couple of decisions we've seen be made here. And I know it was said earlier in the process of hiring Coach Brian Callahan, he wants to work with people that made his job hard.
Yeah, and he did.
Coach McDonald played for or coached in Baltimore, right? He gets Denard Wilson because you're going to make me better. Is the way he looked at those things. And I think the silver lining in this is I hope Will Levis never makes this type of mistake again against a defense in general, because that to me was that was way below the line.
First, I'll give both teams a lot of credit for keeping it in between the lines. Talk about lines. I mean, lines were almost crossed yesterday and it got heated, but yet give credit to both teams for not, getting fined, which I'm sure Ran Carthon is pleasantly surprised, or not surprised, happy about. But I give credit for Seahawks coming in here. Their defense put on a heck of a show when it's all said and done in terms of really challenging this offense. And I think yesterday you talked about Witherspoon kind of bouncing back, and that's what you want as a coach for players. If they have a tough day, maybe that first day, they need to come back and show it. And it's almost like he was on a mission yesterday. You clearly saw it out there in the way that he worked in particular. But I think for Will Levis and this offense, it's not worrisome at this point, just for the fact that I think this was kind of expected. This is why Brian Callahan brought in this type of defense, who you feel like was going to put the most pressure on this offense at this point of camp, and bring that intensity as well. But he has made it clear since the start of camp, and again yesterday, when it comes to Will Levis, he is in a process right now. And part of that process is, he's going to make mistakes, and Brian Callahan will allow him to make these mistakes. But the biggest thing is that they're going to go right back into that meeting room, and Brian Callahan is going to be as blunt as possible when it comes to, you can't do these things. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do, in a good way. So he's not going to be like, he finds a happy medium is pretty much what he was saying, of how we kind of draw out these mistakes and say, these are things that you can't do and can do. And I think that we all know this is a part of the process. And if anything, you probably thought it could happen in terms of these mistakes when you have a new defense you're going up against and you haven't really seen them before. So I'm not super worried about it, but yesterday I just was not happy as much with the red zone work, and you mentioned the 2-minute drill work right here. It just seemed like everybody was a little bit off on the offensive side.
For me, you could tell the Titans were missing maybe 3 of their best 4 pass catchers at that point of practice. No Tyler Boyd, no Josh Wiley, no DeAndre Hopkins. At that point of practice, you could tell. You could absolutely tell.
You could, but that's also the age-old conversation, too, on who makes who. Does the quarterback make the receivers, or do the receivers make the quarterback in that moment? Because if you're the guy, right, when it comes down to you being a productive, really good NFL quarterback, you make, lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah,
the same way that we see, and it's not comparing him to Tom Brady, but look what Tom Brady did with those receivers we didn't know. Look what a guy like Patrick Mahomes has done with guys that we didn't know anything about. Kadarius Toney, I mean, think about that, and it's not saying he's there, but the idea that development needs to be in place, and we need to see proper steps being made, even if the personnel ain't there. Because what we talked about with Levis has been what? D-Hop is a little bit older. We got to make sure we can keep him on the field. Calvin is 30, and looking at Tyler Boyd too. So there's
who wasn't
injuries
out there.
happen.
Yeah.
And you're right, without him still.
Right, but I think it's definitely true in game settings. But again, you have the element of trying things in practice and seeing if you can fit balls into tight windows to get it to Mason Kinsey. Can Mason Kinsey win one-on-one where he's breaking to the outside and you're kind of throwing blind a little bit and trusting that he's going to get separation? And can he go get the football, right? This is Brian Callahan yesterday speaking about the interception and the 2-minute part of practice that he was not too pleased with.
Disappointed. Yeah, I mean, that wasn't what I was hoping to get out of that period. I thought it just wasn't good execution all the way around, and we threw an interception to what would end a game, and so it's good coaching to teach off of. But very disappointed in that. I was hopeful to get better work out of that with the operation instead of just throwing a pick on the first play, and that's it. So disappointing.
What I saw yesterday was the Titans were better in one-on-ones, and the Seahawks were better in team periods. I would give the Titans an edge in the big man one-on-ones. I have the full notes that I can give later in the show of Ramon giving win, loss, or tie to every Titans offensive lineman that went through a one-on-one drill, and they held their own. Essentially, everybody but J.C. Latham had a great rep. J.C. Latham did not have a great day.
No.
Again, really for a second straight day yesterday in some of those one-on-ones. But at the same time, Jeffrey Simmons also just took a man's soul in Laken Tomlinson on one-on-one. And the Titans defensive line did some good things in one-on-ones. And you had Mason Kinsey calling a guy barbecue chicken because of how badly he got him on a one-on-one in red zone. So I think there was a little bit of back and forth, but I do think the way that practice ended would encourage me, if I'm Brian Callahan, to change the plan for tomorrow's preseason game just a little bit. Because now your offense has gotten basically robbed of a situational drill against another defense, which is the only opportunity you're going to have to do that until you play the Chicago Bears week 1, or maybe when you play the New Orleans Saints next weekend in the final preseason game. A massive chance for this offense to work against another defense is gone. Does that motivate you to change the plan a little bit and put the ones out there for one drive again tomorrow?
We don't know what the Seahawks are doing yet, though. We don't know if they're playing their ones.
I don't really care.
And so I look at it as Brian Callahan's not switching up that plan. Like I think he's a guy who's going to set his ways and then, probably plan to play them in the New Orleans games. Should he? The only reason why I would say no on this, would I like to see it? Yeah. If I were a player, depending on the player, I would hope most would want to get out there and kind of at least go through a series or two to get some momentum back their way or feel good about, a little bit better about how they ended it. But I've already seen kind of, you're hearing the injuries start to be listed now, and they've kind of been starting to pile up on both sides of the ball. I'm sure that's in the back of Callahan's head as well after 2 grueling days of practice where we have lost some guys, not permanently, but there are guys that were added to the injury list yesterday. So I'm sure that's part of why I would like to see it, but I just think that that's a reasoning why they probably won't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeffrey took a man's soul yesterday. That should
the
be
defense
viral.
I liked for the most part.
And I agree with you. I think the one-on-ones, except for DK Metcalf, he
Except
found
for
his
DK.
Well,
way.
and Quandre Diggs getting lost in coverage twice and allowing 2 explosive plays to DK Metcalf, and one of which came back from that holding penalty.
It did, and I'm talking to Quandre Diggs, blips, learning this defense, getting settled back in, first time back in training camp in a while, and that's a growth thing, right? We'll see that hopefully be covered up, and there are missing pieces too, right? Without your 2 starting, there's a lot of context to be given. If we want to come in here and just pile drive the idea that this team ain't good, then we can do that too. But there's a lot.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone's trying to do that.
No. But what I'm saying is, never mind. What I'm saying is, there's a lot of missing pieces around.
Sure.
Also, you're playing with guys that are usually either in nickel dime situations or not your non-starters. There's that context also. I think they were trying some things out as far as their rushing, the rush plans yesterday too. So the guys you think will be there as far as the defensive packages up front. But to get to your original question, Will, do I want to see the ones potentially go this weekend? I'd like to. But here's the other things too. The plan that this coaching staff has for finding out if guys want to or guys can make this team is where this is going to happen too. Bert went down to the D-line yesterday, right? And Coach Rocker was going in on a couple of young D linemen from what he said. And I told Bert, I was like, all this is the numbers are getting counted. Mm-hmm. It's getting really tight right now.
Lost Marlon Davidson for the season as well.
Yeah. And
torn biceps.
So to be pressing in a situation to find your reserve guys, find quality backups is why I think it's crucial for this group to play at home this upcoming weekend. Bert, Coach Rocker was having a day yesterday. You can't hear me? Oh, okay, never mind.
I think Keandre Colburn was not at practice either yesterday.
He wasn't either? Okay. And also this, I think playing the starters next week in New Orleans would probably be most ideal for this reason too. Your first game of the season is on the road where the crowd is going to be loud. And then you also playing in New Orleans, and I think even if it is a preseason game, it's going to be loud there. I'd love to see this group go a half and come out after halftime, same as Coach Fisher said yesterday too, is see how they adjust. There's a couple of guys that don't know what it feels like to come out in the second half in an NFL game. J.C. Latham being one of those guys, mentally being engaged to where you can be in a position to understand what a road game is like. In general, though, yesterday's team periods, to your point, Will, didn't hit the way they should have, considering what the one-on-ones look like and the skill set of these guys needed to be finishing out this day too. It was testy, and I think. No, I can't say emotions got into it. It was just a bad play right there at the end of that for the ones at the end of that 2-minute drill.
It's just like a cliffhanger. Like it left you hanging. Like you're like, wait, seriously?
But
and I'm sure if I felt that way, the players felt that way. Yeah.
This was Brian Callahan yesterday when asked if he is worried about the lack of situational work this offense is able to get right now.
Oh, no, I don't think that. We got plenty of situational work coming up. We have a whole situational practice coming up as well. So no, this is just part of the process. Again, would have loved to see us be able to go 5, 6, 7 plays and have a shot at the end zone to win the game in that situation, and we didn't. And so we got to go back and learn from whatever that is that the mistake was. And you can't turn the ball over if you want to have a chance to win the game with a minute left. And so I think that's really all. To me, it's an isolated incident to the practice today, and we'll keep moving forward.
That was Brian Callahan yesterday.
My thing is, I'm upset with it, but I ain't overly mad because this is training camp.
It is. It leaves a very bad taste in your mouth when you feel like you didn't take advantage of your last chance to literally see a one starting everybody's best out there defense.
Yeah.
Until you play the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Everybody would love to have it end in a different way. As for situational work, I do believe him. He seems to be a very calculated guy in terms of how his plans are set out. And I would think for a first-year head coach, that's probably pretty critical to have an actual plan. So it looks like he mentioned the full situational practice, or a big part of practice will be situational. So I'm not necessarily as worried about that. I'm looking back at the whole 2 days with the Seahawks, and we mentioned there's guys that are missing, right? I mean, there's a lot of starters on the defensive side. Tyler Boyd wasn't out there with a bruise on his foot, who has been really good with Levis in terms of connection early on in camp. I wish we could have seen a little more out of Will Levis still, and Calvin Ridley. And I still think that was kind of the bummer for me. I wish we could have seen that connection against a defense like this, but it'll take time, and I'm confident that they'll figure it out. But it would have been nice to see a little bit more connection there.
Tim in Mount Juliet, first up with the phones at 615-737-1045. What's up, Tim?
Hey, morning, y'all.
Morning.
I appreciate y'all. So my original point was kind of reiterating what Will was saying. I'm not overly concerned about Will Levis throwing to Mason Kinsey, because I'm really hoping Will Levis isn't throwing to Mason Kinsey during the games. Now, as a over-reluctant Titans fan that has been down this road before, I know there's a very real possibility we lose our top 4 receivers in the first drive of week 1, and that may be something we have to deal with. But if that happens, we're probably not going to have a great season anyway. So, if anything, I would think, and I would make the argument that the Seahawks should be pretty nervous about their team. If they didn't push us around for those 2 days when we're missing a lot of our guys, including our best corners and our best receivers, maybe they're the ones that should be a little bit nervous. We seem to hold our own. If I'm the Seahawks, I'm thinking we should be able to push this team around with the rookie left tackle and a kind of a rookie quarterback and all these receivers that aren't even going to make the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
For sure.
Thank you, Tim. I don't think anybody pushed anyone around, for sure. I think it was a pretty even couple of days where both teams made some mistakes, but I wasn't overly, blown away by what Seattle was able to do either. It was just 2 days of practice.
Yeah, I would say offensively with Seattle, I wasn't super impressed. I mean, DK, we've mentioned his name, but he was kind of the one force for them. Other than that, I think the defense for the Titans, who I think that's where you were missing majority of your pieces. I thought they looked pretty good against what they, what they were bringing.
615-737-1045. More Titans takes on the phone lines we can get to if you want to jump in. Coming up, there is one coach who is maybe as not confident in his team as any head coach I have ever heard in my life. And we have some interesting audio for you next. Hey, it's Will Bowling. If your air conditioning is struggling to keep up, maybe it is time for a professional to check it out. As hot as it has been here in Middle Tennessee, that heat wave picking back up yesterday. If your AC unit is struggling, you probably learned it over the last 24 to 48 hours. The good news for you, our friends at Lee Company have you covered. One of their expert technicians will perform a 22-point inspection as well as seasonal cleaning and maintenance to help you stay ahead of Mother Nature. And thanks to their visual findings platform, their professional team virtually shows you exactly what they see in addition to updates and information on your unit's efficiency. Don't let your air conditioning fail this summer. Call Lee Company at 615-567-1000 or go to leecompany.com/promotions to get $20 off your air conditioning tune-up today. That's 615-567-1000 online at leecompany.com. That's Lee Company, all you need. RKW, Ramon, Kayla, and Will wrap it up hour number 1 on your Friday morning. In a half hour, Brent Hubs of VolQuest. Your phone calls at 615-737-1045. So Vestavia Hills head coach Robert Evans and his team is getting ready to play Carver High School. Alabama high school football starts up next week. Of course, as does Nashville, Tennessee high school football. I'll have more on that at the end of the show this morning. This was Robert Evans when asked about the challenge of playing Carver for his Birmingham area high school football program. This is as little confidence as I have ever heard from a head coach about his team going up against someone else's team. This was Robert Evans this week.
This guy's going to Alabama, this one's going to Florida, this one's going to Texas A&M, this one has 20 offers, and we got a bunch of pie caps and Fijis. They're going to be tackling the guys that they're going to be cheering for in a year or two.
Go get them, guys.
Wild.
All right. Hey, you may be a Kappa Sigma next year, but you're going to put a cap on a cap and tackle these guys. Bring it in. Team on 3.
Hey, coach is a realist, man. That's all it is.
So the funny thing is, the Montgomery Advertiser, in their Week 1 Alabama high school football rankings, yes, I went this deep into my research, Vestavia Hills actually ranked ahead of the Carver High School team that has a 4-star 2025 running back committed to Alabama, a 3-star wide receiver committed to Texas A&M, and an uncommitted 3-star wide receiver in the class of 2026.
It's like reverse psychology or something in this situation.
Mental pretzel.
Yeah.
Mental pretzel.
Okay, Coach, we see what you're doing here. Vestavia Hills, that's kind of like the Birmingham area.
It's a very nice area.
Very nice area. You think of Hoover, Vestavia Hills. Carver has always kind of struggled in terms of getting consistent programs there. At least I covered them in 2007, 2008. But they've had some really good talent come out of there, no doubt. But I was like, Vestavia Hills, I feel like they've always had like more solid program as of late, at least.
It's a very nice place. That's where the girl faked her kidnapping, I think, like last year or something like that during the summer.
Yeah,
I was down there when that happened. She showed up in Vestavia Hills. I remember that, man. It was a weird situation. But that coach has just been a realist about what's going on, man. And here's the thing, too. He's probably mocking his players. Like, being around kids now, they got so much information and watching each other huddles, and all they do is they go, oh, have you seen this kid? He's supposed to be 6'8" and 280 pounds. Yeah. Like, stop. So if I was coach, I'd be like, yeah, you're right. You guys are playing against the whites of what is it? Not the whites.
Wait,
you better finish your sentence.
Game of Thrones. The Wall, right? Yeah.
Oh
I'm going to let you just wallow in this for a minute.
The White Walkers. Yes, Game of Thrones. Yes, that's the way these kids make it seem with watching each other's huddles and stuff like that. White Walkers, you know where I was at.
Crazy eyes.
Carver, I did not know where you were at. Carver has won 4 region championships since 2008. So there you go.
Yeah. So right when I left, they got good.
It's either that or the coach is just trying to hide a lot that he has going on. Again, kids these days see too much and talk too much when it comes down to their opponents. When it comes to their opponents. So if I was coach, I'd lean in too. What do he call them? You pie cappers and whatever they are.
Fijis.
Pretty much they're in the fraternities and the other guys are going playing college ball.
I absolutely love that for that coach. Man, I heard it and laughed yesterday. He was really, and if you see his reaction to everything he says going on too, he is dead serious about it. But as a coach, you do what you can to get your team going, man. They're probably going to be so amped up whenever they play them. And maybe he's doing like Nick Saban. You remember when he spoke about NIL and everything? Maybe this is what he's trying to do for his program. I love this for this coach, man. Walk in there scared if you want to,
pretty
coach.
Funny.
Anyway, high school football all the way back, though. It was Jamboree season last night.
Oh, my gosh.
It was Jamboree.
Here.
I love Jamboree.
The East Tennessee Jamboree was last week. I know there's always a big one tonight, exactly a week before the week 1.
Man, you want to hear a cool Jamboree story from me in high school? So this is going into my junior year.
Okay.
And Ron know I'm going to tell this story. It is by far one of the most hilarious things ever. So people knew my brother was Ron Slit, Tennessee. And the Jamboree's going on, so it's right before... This is right before the college is about to be enrolled, too. And I'm playing in the Jamboree in Dyersburg, Tennessee, man. And we go out and we play our half and we hang around and stuff like that. And it was like, hey, Ramon, there's this person here that says they know your brother. And it was this person that pulled up, was like, yeah, I know your brother Ron at Tennessee. And I'm just like, everybody on my team thought I was big time because somebody came up to me from college and knew my brother at UT. It was a cool moment for a dude.
How old was Ron compared?
He was a sophomore, I think, at that time.
Okay,
so Ron
he
was really on his. He was crushing
Ron?
it. Yeah, Ron Savage. Yeah, he was in the zone then. Man. I'll never
Slay Dog's
forget that.
laughing in the
He's
chat.
laughing because he knew where I was headed with this story, man. You want to talk about big man on campus? Somebody roll up to you. I know your brother at Tennessee. I'm like.
Popping the collar.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was cool at that point right there. So shout out to Savage, man, for anointing his boy.
615-737-1045. Coming up, what Malik Willis had to, what Brian Callahan had to say about Malik Willis starting tomorrow. Are there any other starters you would like to see on the field as the Titans take on the Seahawks? We'll talk about that next.
It's Ramon Foster here for Wesley Mortgage, man, letting you know, man, it starts with their own Chuck McDowell, man, who's a local Nashville native that cares about this community and always proud to serve it. Chuck, he reinvests in the people in the place that make Nashville such a wonderful place. While other mortgage companies are downsizing, Chuck McDowell and the Wesley Mortgage team are rapidly expanding in Nashville, keeping people working in the career that they love, and they love to have you join their team. Chuck and his leadership team at Wesley Mortgage have a support system in place to help you succeed in the mortgage business, ensuring your loans close on time, making sure you get paid, giving you back the time to build your business, and bring back the fun to the mortgage profession. With unique networking opportunities with the Tennessee Titans and the Music City Grand Prix, they make closing deals and building relationships fun again. So, if you're in the mortgage industry and you're tired of the grind, tired of the pressure, and just tired of micromanaging everything to make sure your clients get handled correctly, then you owe it to yourself to go to whywesley.com.
What's going on? 7 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Titans take to Nissan Stadium again this Saturday. Lee Company countdown to kickoff at 3 o'clock. Then Titans Radio gets you covered with everything you need to know before the game at 5. Head coach Brian Callahan announced that Malik Willis would get the start at quarterback. Callahan also provided his rationale behind not playing the starters.
No, the starters won't play. There may be a couple of guys maybe that play, but our starters will not play. Obviously, 2 really hard, physical, heavy days of work for them. No reason to put them in the game. We got our controlled work here against their ones. Really, that's the benefit of the joint practices is the amount you get against these guys. It's controlled. But no, our starters should not expect to see many starters, if any at all.
A monster 24 hours for the Atlanta Falcons defense. First, trading a third-round pick to the Patriots for Matt Judon, then signing Justin Simmons, a one-year deal worth up to $8 million. Simmons now added to the defensive backfield of A.J. Terrell and Jesse Bates. Bills Pro Bowl linebacker Matt Milano, who left Tuesday's practice injured with a torn bicep. We now know that he tore his bicep and will be out indefinitely. Milano undergoes surgery on a torn bicep with the hope of returning later this season with a possible December return. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Seven a.m., hour 2. Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW 104.5 The Zone is off and running. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Robert Walsh makes the show happen. 615-737-1045 is the number. 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon is when the League Company countdown to kickoff gets you ready for Titans and Seahawks. Preseason matchup number 2. And the final time the Titans will play in Nissan Stadium for quite a while, until 2 weeks after Labor Day.
That's right.
Yeah,
because they got
showing.
Chicago on the road to start the season.
It should be a good evening if y'all are wanting to go to a game. We know how the tickets can be and stuff like that. I've heard people mention that before as far as getting the opportunity to go in the stadium and enjoy it. This would be the most ideal if you can log on and find you guys some tickets, man. See the new guys, and it was real good last weekend in Nissan Stadium. Man, the crowd for a preseason game was enthusiastic. It really was.
Yeah, it was fun. And I know you won't get to see probably a majority of the starters, but like he mentioned, these young guys that are battling for spots, there's some really good spots. Rhett Bryan came in here earlier, and we were kind of discussing just how much there are some roster spots up for grabs in some of these positions. Should be fun to see how they battle down the stretch for sure.
Brian Callahan yesterday tells the media that Malik Willis will start tomorrow's game. You all right with that?
Yes, 100%. Malik deserves his opportunities, man. We can't sit here and complain about Malik Willis being, where he is and not actually giving him a fair shot. Malik, to me, has gotten better. I do want to see how he operates, getting a start again, putting himself in a position, putting himself in a position to where he is going to be more successful, coming out, leading this team. The throws, the flow of it too. There's a lot that Malik can do this weekend that helps his case either here or somewhere else, man. And it's also this too, the coaches understanding what he is gonna, what you want him to do as far as the flow of the game. Will you be able to craft a plan for him that's going to use his legs, roll him out? I will say this too. Even last weekend, I was surprised at watching Mason, Levis, and Malik roll out in this offense. You won't just have Statue of Liberty guys back there, man. So better quality of player for Malik with the twos.
Sure.
And this would be the best case scenario for him to show what he's got.
It's also always fun to kind of watch how he adapts to maybe, finding those connections with the twos when he hasn't worked as much with them in camp, because he's been taking majority of the reps with those threes. So it's a good test for some of these twos wide receivers like maybe Jaquan Jackson, who has been taking reps with threes too, though. But I think he's also had a connection with Mason Rudolph as well.
Rudolph,
So
yes.
it'll be fun to see how they handle that. And then we'll see how much Mason Rudolph plays. I would expect him to play at some point, maybe even in the first half or the second half, or maybe they'll switch back and forth. We don't know yet. He didn't give us specifics on that. But I'm glad Willis gets the start. I think that will be fun for him. Brian Callahan said he earned it. And I think that, for the most part, yeah, that's exactly true.
What I would do, Malik, you got first quarter. Mason, you're going to take the second quarter. Malik, I want you to come back out for the third quarter. Mason Rudolph, you're going to finish the game for the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Because I think putting Mason Rudolph in the game makes you more easily evaluate the twos.
Sure.
It's closer to the offense you would run if Will Levis had a pinky, as Ramon likes to say, and needed to come out.
Yeah.
You're going to run different things for Malik Willis than you are for Mason Rudolph in a perfect world. I think the wide receiver battle becomes clearer to you if Mason Rudolph is throwing them footballs versus Malik Willis waiting too long to throw them footballs and start scrambling out of the pocket. Because although the timing has improved for Malik, it is still not on the same level as Mason. There is a clear gap between QB2 and QB3 that, for me, has widened over the last week plus, going back to last Saturday's game.
That is one of the bigger topics, I think, too. And I saw it yesterday. Malik held onto it again. Remember, we were sitting in the back watching it, and he held onto it again, and he tried to throw to the flats. And you're just like, ball should have been gone about a half a second ago. It was those moments.
Yep.
So I like that idea that you flip-flop, but I'd much rather see Mason go with the threes just to see how he stands tall, too. Because here's the thing about Mason's situation from last year, also at the end of the season for Pittsburgh, is Mason was working with dudes who was Pro Bowlers like Deontay Johnson or fringe guys like a Pat Fryermuth that helped also him in those situations. The same way that I spoke of Will Levis earlier and how he threw the ball to Mason Kinsey and who makes who makes each other better. Is it Will Levis supposed to make Will Levis supposed to make Mason Kinsey better, or is it vice versa? And that to me, seeing if Mason can operate with the threes to close out a game, what's his poise like? Does he escape getting hit? Is his timing good? And also for the coaches too, knowing that your timing of protection is probably a little bit shorter because of the quality of player in right now. How do they craft a script for Mason Rudolph too? So I'd much rather see Mason close it out. I do want to give Malik as much of an opportunity to be successful as he possibly can. And I'm not opposed to the back and forth, but as far as Malik is concerned, right, as the number 3 guy, if they keep 3 quarterbacks, which we don't know yet, the most opportunity he's going to get this preseason is this upcoming weekend. Because I'd expect, considering this team is going on the road, that the ones may play more than I think they will next week because of the road Noah's opportunity. And it's New Orleans with another defense also.
And you're on the road for the first time, which is always a different environment.
Operation
you know how that
of play
is,
and
right?
all that. Crowd noise during practice is cool.
Sure.
But inside of that doggone dome
thing
in
is
New
loud.
Orleans, it bounces off the top.
Right?
Dome, sweet dome.
Dome,
Exactly.
sweet dome. It is, God, I hated playing that.
Do you this is just picking apart the situation of playing Malik with the 2s and Mason Rudolph as he plays with the 3s tomorrow. Do you have any concern with Mason behind a third line offensive line?
No, because that's the other part I was just mentioning. How is Mason's ability to get rid of the ball?
So you want to actually see him maybe
be in a bad situation. Yeah, I do. Because, again, it may be a situation where Mason hasn't taken reps with the ones all week.
Right.
And then Will Levis comes out with a pinky or he got to get spatted up, right? And can Mason Rudolph go in cold and work with what he don't know? And he won't probably know a lot of these guys on the 3 as far as the chemistry and flow of what they got going on. So to me, it puts them in situations where they have to figure it out. Sometimes you have to overcome coaching. And that's why I think you put a guy like Mason in with the 3s. This is where you want to see him flourish also.
And Brian Callahan hinted at this a couple of weeks ago that he was going to at some point kind of intermix, some of the 2s and the 3s and stuff. So this is exactly what he's doing.
This was Brian Callahan yesterday when asked about the quarterback situation, the plan for tomorrow, telling the media that Malik Willis will get the start.
Malik will start the game. Yeah, Malik will get his chance. He's rotated some with the 2s. In the last 2 days, he will start the game with that group. He's earned the right to have an opportunity to play with that group, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does.
Mike in Cleveland's on YouTube and says in the FNN Big Chat, says, I'm going to say it. I'm tired of Malik Willis because I don't think he is a long-term answer to quarterback. With all due respect to Malik, who is one of the hardest workers in that building, who has continued to put his best foot forward to be an NFL quarterback, I kind of agree with Mike.
This is why you give him an opportunity to prove himself, too, because as a coach, players know when you're out on them, too, right? And I'll say this, too. We're at that point in training camp where coaches are probably tallying numbers of who's on this team and who's not on this team. But at all times, coaches are paid to coach and want to and see if they can get a diamond out of the coal, right? That's what they want to see happen. And this is Malik's opportunity to figure this out for himself, which is why I kind of want to see it. And I think the conversation is really good to have. I think the optics of what Malik Willis does this weekend can give a lot of folks answers, because last year we could blame it on the offensive staff. Oh, they run a trash offense. This offense isn't built for Malik, or they're not doing certain things for Malik. I think we've seen in practice where Malik has his book, and Mason Rudolph has his, and Will Levis has the entire plethora of plays that he wants. We've seen them do that for Malik. But as far as a coaching staff evaluating a guy that can help you, maybe, you got to give him this opportunity. And it may not be here again. This is an interview for 31 other teams for this young man.
I was going to ask you
and think about who they're
too.
playing against, too.
Right.
Gino's somewhat of a mobile type of guy like Malik.
Yeah.
This could be first-person interview for the Seattle Seahawks.
I was kind of wondering, you guys, if you put Willis out there, he's got enough tape, obviously, and you're putting him out there with the twos tomorrow. At any point, do you think there could be something back for him, or you think you just would lose him to the practice squad if you put him on the practice? And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but does he have any value at this point with the growth that we have seen to any organization that maybe it's a better fit?
No, not in my opinion.
Right now, what has he done to prove that somebody else wants?
Unless a quarterback gets hurt somewhere else and you've got a need for another backup to come in.
Right.
I mean, to me, Malik Willis is a backup quarterback to a third quarterback. I don't think system really even matters as much as it is somebody's going to have to be hurt, because there's not a shortage of quarterbacks that are throwing and just kind of arms, right? Watching Hard Knocks, Austin Reed, the kid from Western Kentucky. Is up there as the fourth guy in Chicago. Everybody's got young quarterbacks they're trying to kick the tires on. There's not really a need for those right now.
So they still keep him, though, you think, on the roster at this point, Malik?
Doesn't hurt him because of the third quarterback rule.
Yeah.
And you can also have him be a service as a practice squad
guy, yeah, who's already worked with
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder when it comes down to how coaches view you. That's always the case.
Sure.
Coming up, our weekly conversation with our Tennessee insider, Brent Hubs of VolQuest and On3. The David Sanders commitment day is upon us. We'll get the final word from Brent on that recruitment and the latest on Tennessee's latest scrimmage in Neyland Stadium yesterday. That's next.
Dickens Turf and Landscape Supply, you got to go where the pros go. Dickens Turf and Landscape Supply here in Middle Tennessee. My guy Trey Hartsook joins us here this morning. And Trey, fall is right around the corner. What do we need to be doing to take care of our lawns?
Hey, Will, such an exciting time knowing that the cooler weather is coming. I'll tell you right now is when you can really take advantage of what Dickens Turf and Landscape Supply does best, and that's keeping that color in the lawn with our custom blended fertilizers that we use in the summer season because it's hot and it's dry. Really got to keep that lawn maintained with some of our custom blended organic fertilizers. If that's your lawn right now, if you're looking crispy, dry, you haven't given some of our stuff a chance, stop in and see us. We're conveniently located all over Middle Tennessee. We'd love to talk to you about your plan going into the fall. Like I said, we got turf experts at every single location that can really help you with your lawn, get it whipped into shape. Stop in and see us. We'd love to see you. We're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Murfreesboro, Bellevue, Brentwood, Lombard, Mount Juliet, and Franklin. As always, if you can't get a hold of us, check us out online, DickensSupply.com.
Friday morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, RKW 1045 The Zone. Whole crew in studio. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, and Will Bowling. Joined by Brent Hubs of VolQuest and On3 with lots to discuss in Knoxville, Tennessee this week. Brent, what's up? How are you?
I'm doing great. Hope you guys are doing well.
Yes, sir. We are excellent. Tennessee back in Neyland Stadium yesterday. No Nico Iamaleava with a stomach bug. How do you think the offense fared, though, Brent, without him leading the way and Gaston Moore getting some work there with the ones?
They were solid. I mean, they weren't the offense you're going to see, obviously, with Nico, but I think what it shows you is, and what the belief is based on everybody I talk to, is that Gaston Moore in a pinch can do things. He can finish a game out. He can manage a game for a period of time. If for some reason Nico were out of a game for, an injury evaluation, an ankle tape, or something to that effect, then I think you feel comfortable with Gaston Moore managing the game. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If Nico were out for an extended period of time, and obviously that's not what anybody's thinking about, hoping or wishing or wanting or even crossing their mind, but if he were, then I think you would see them play both Gaston Moore and Jake Merklinger. But Gaston Moore's got a command of this offense. He understands the offense. He took care of the football yesterday, made a couple of plays to Dante Thornton, moved the ball some, and I think it was an okay day for the offense. Now, you had some defensive guys who didn't go as well. This is kind of like week 2 of an NFL game where you're trying to figure out sort of who's above the line and below the line in terms of being able to help you this year if called upon. So it's a lot more about younger guys, and it was also get some guys, in the flow that didn't go in the first scrimmage. Guy like Lance Hurd, Brew McCoy went a little bit in the scrimmage. So it was kind of a mixed bag in terms of what all needed to be done. I will say this, it wasn't scheduled or planned, but it probably isn't the worst thing that you wake up on game day, so to speak, and find out you're down a starter, and you've got to immediately adjust. And that's what happened to them offensively yesterday, which when you're talking about game situations, there's another game situation for coaches.
On the defensive side, Brent, how is the battle continuing for that star position between Christian Harrison and Boo Carter? How much of a rotation do you expect to see there for these first couple of weeks?
I think you're going to see a rotation. They're going to play both of them. They want to play both of them. They split it 50-50 yesterday with the first team reps. And, I think it's a matter of Boo staying within the framework of the defense and not freelancing too much and not being kind of a feast or famine type player. And then it's about, can Christian Harrison make the plays that you're expecting him to make, and you need that star position to make plays that Boo Carter can make regularly as long as he avoids the play on the other end where he's, somewhere he's not supposed to be because he decided to freelance something on his own. So you got a freshman who's very talented. It's very clear, Willie Martinez. Nobody's hiding how talented Boo Carter is. And then Christian Harrison's the biggest surprise of camp. That's an out of nowhere thing. And that's not a criticism of Christian Harrison. It's just a situation where a year ago he basically wasn't in the 3 deep at any position, and now he's in a spot where he could be the starter at star with the injury to Jordan Thomas. And, nobody had that on their bingo card when camp opened the first week of August.
No doubt. Brent Hubs with us this morning. Hubs, man, I'm a little nervous, man. It's not because you're not in the garden this morning, okay? Because usually hear the birds chirping and it helps calms me down a little bit, okay? All right, but my nervousness, man, is there's a lot of attention and praise going towards James Pierce. And because of that, you know how it goes for guys that get preseason this and All-American that, top freaks list, top athlete list, is it usually goes a little bit in the opposite direction because that guy is culprit number 1. They're going to double team him. They're going to do whatever they can to silence him. If that's the case, Hubs, what's the alternative for other guys eating if he's supposed to be this dynamic but doesn't?
Well, it's Omar Norman Lott. It's Omari Thomas. It's Joshua Joseph. It's Bryson Eason. It's Davin Hobbs. It's Tyree West. It's Tyree Weathersby. It's the other 12 to 13 defensive linemen that are going to play 20-plus snaps a game that you're going to be in your rotation with. that's going to take the pressure off of James, some of the pressure off James Pierce. I think James' biggest challenge is don't get frustrated and don't try to do something outside of the realm of what you're asked to do. Okay, and what you may be asked to do at some point is take a double team to allow somebody else to go make the play. And that's a little bit of what Tyler Barron did last year that he didn't get a whole lot of credit for, is that he helped create some sacks oftentimes when he was playing inside in that Rabbits package, because he pushed the pocket, forced the quarterback to move, and maybe he moved into James Pierce's line of sight, right? Some of those things. So I think the thing for James is you got to understand, man, they are going to come at you. You're going to get chipped. You're going to get blocked. You're going to get double teamed. You're going to get pushed out of the way. They're going to go away from you. All those types of things that's the byproduct of being a really good football player. And on the field, you have to be mature about that. And you have to play smart. And we'll see. I mean, I don't have any reason to believe James can't. I mean, he had the great start last year, and in the middle of the season, his numbers, quote, dipped, but they didn't dip. The defensive line's numbers didn't dip. Everybody was paying attention to James, and it freed up some people on the other side or in the middle to go make some plays. And I think that'll be the case again. I think one of the differences is I think Joshua Josephs will be more productive than Roman Harrison was a year ago when they flipped Roman to the other side and they went in their, quote, Rabbits pass rush package. I think they can be more effective in that package this year because I think Joshua Josephs is in a different place than he's been in. We talked about him last week, and I think he's a more talented player than Roman Harrison was or is. And I think that's a good thing for Tennessee moving forward.
If we could revisit just a little bit, man, my BVS, Battered Vols syndrome, continues to come up.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, because I got one game.
Come on, Eeyore. Talk to me, Eeyore.
I'm trying, Hubs. And you know I'm an optimist, man. Naturally, I'm an optimist, Hub, right?
All right, go ahead. Here we go.
One game that got me last year, man. It wasn't even the big two. It was the at Florida. And seeing how that defense had no response, man, is depth being developed at that spot? Because I feel like the way they couldn't stop a nosebleed off Florida's offensive left side of it is probably, I think, the dagger in the heart when it comes down to how they lost that game. Like the ability to stop the run, and I don't know if they were stealing signals. I don't know what they had down there, okay? But they just simply couldn't stop it, and that's where I'm asking the questions like, did we get something out of Elijah Simmons? David Hobbs and Big O still leading the charge, Omar Norman Lott. Like, what is that group honestly looking like as far as run stopping goes?
I think they've been very good. Okay. To this point. Now, here's the thing. I mean, at every level, you can give up a big play in the run game if you misfit something, get out of a gap, linebacker takes a false step and can't get to the hole, miss a tackle. I mean, you go back to that Florida game and you had the one long run where the tackling, looked like Saturday morning in a rec league in 7-year-old ball, right? I mean, they were bad. It was a bad tackling play, and it was a 60-yard touchdown. No. The other two touchdown drives, one was a short field because of a turnover, and the other, they gave up 2 3rd-and-7s or 3rd-and-8s on the drives. I've said this in a couple of different spots, and I truly believe this is the case. When you look at this team, yeah, they've got to answer questions in the secondary. What are the pieces? What do they fit like? They have to stay healthy. Who doesn't, right? I mean, all of those things that a lot of people around the country have right now in position battles or trying to shore up their 2 deep and all that. But the 2 stats that count for this team this year that will determine whether or not, in my opinion, what they are doing in December. Are they bowl prepping or are they playoff prepping? Okay, and I think those 2 stats, defensively, it's about winning on 3rd and long. They were a better defense last year in 3rd and 2 or less or 4th and short than they were in 3rd and 8. Okay, zone coverage wasn't very good. When they didn't bring the house on 3rd down, that they gave up too many big windows to throw the ball in. And then when they went man coverage, they gave up slants and different things like that. They have to win on 3rd and long. And then offensively, they got to be more efficient in the red zone. For all the talk about, well, they didn't have Jalen Hyatt and Joe Milton didn't complete 60-yard passes and all those things, and those are all true. when you look at their red zone numbers last year, they scored comparing 22 to 23, they scored 25 less touchdowns in the red zone in 23 than they did in 22. 25. So you got to be able to finish in the red zone with Nico and this offense, and then defensively, when you get in third and long, and it's the same way in the NFL. You get in third and long, you better get off the field, right, Ramon?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Tennessee's got to win those two stats this fall. They have to take steps forward in those two areas if they're going to reach their potential.
All right, Hubs, I'm back, man. I'm off the ledge. Bert, hit it, man. Let's go. All right,
15 days.
Where's your pom-pom over there?
All right. Whew. All right, Hubs, I'm back, man. You got me.
Back.
You talk some football.
I don't know what I did to get you. That's the two key areas they got to improve on, man.
That's all it takes.
He's pumped about
That's
that.
all
He
it takes with
believes.
Ramon.
I mean, Ramon, I didn't guarantee you anything. I said if they don't do these two areas, then your battered ball syndrome's going to come true. I'm not real sure what I've done. I'd like to be in your therapist. You're going to fix.
Bert, hit it again, man.
Here we go.
I don't care about nothing but the Vols, all right? All right, Hubs. You see, if you ain't got the birds chirping, this is what happens, all right? This is what happens, Hubs.
I think he needs to pay you,
Can't
Hubs.
wait to see you, man.
If you're his therapist, that counts for something.
I think you need to pace yourself. Don't peak too early. It's not game week yet, Ramona. Okay? We're not getting ankles yet. We're not eating baby food yet. Just calm down. We got a little ways to go here on this thing.
Hit it again.
Oh, my gosh. Here we go. No. We've been talking about David Sanders yet.
Oh, my gosh.
All right. Whew,
Taking some deep breaths over there.
yeah,
Brent.
I'm good now. I'm good.
If you're just joining us in that moment, that exciting moment, Brent Hubs of VolQuest joining us here on RKW like he does every Friday. Brent, with this offense and the wide receivers, what's different maybe about Dante Thornton's mindset this year that he's improved on in just the belief and the confidence?
I think he's just settled in and trying to play football. There were a lot of unfair expectations placed on him last year. He's big, he's pretty, he looks the part when you don't put pads on. A lot of people thought he was plug and play for Jalen Hyatt. Joey Halsley, Tennessee's first-year offensive coordinator, kind of fitted him for a gold jacket in the preseason last year when he called him a freak, and that he does things that other people can't do on the football field, and I think it created some pressure, and I don't think Dante handled it great. I think playing in the slot was overwhelming for him for all that they have to read at that position. With the quarterback, I don't know that he and Joe had the greatest chemistry because they didn't go through spring practice together. All those things kind of factored in. Then they moved him outside where he played at Oregon. He seemed a bit more comfortable, and then he got hurt. He made a couple plays yesterday in the scrimmage, which I think is a real positive thing. And I don't think the weight of the world is on him. I don't think he feels the weight of the world right now. I think he's just I'm trying to get my snaps. I'm trying to get reps because we're deep and there's competition there. Whereas last year, but when they handed him his jersey, he was anointed something. And I don't know that he handled that as well as – and I don't know how many people would. I don't know that he handled that particularly well. So he looks the part. He looks terrific. I think he can do things. There's probably some limitations on some of the things that he does well. And I think they'll play to his strengths more this year than they did early last year when he was a, quote, early season disappointment.
Hubs, I was listening there, and you said big, pretty, and doesn't look good in pads. For a second, I thought you were talking about Ramon Foster.
See how it goes up? See how it goes?
This is why we need you to talk him back up sometimes.
Exactly.
Bert humbles him.
Wow.
Hey, Hubs, look, I am who I am, man, and I look awesome. You hear me?
Look, he stole your lunch. He just stole your lunch money is what he did.
You know what it is?
Sounds about
Hubs,
right.
He hate us because he ain't us,
And he's
okay?
a Baltimore Ravens
Yes.
fan, which makes the dynamic a little spicy between the two of them.
It is, man. Nobody.
That is not. Don't let him outside the glass, man. Just keep him behind the glass if he's a Ravens fan, right?
Exactly. Keep him in the boom boom room where Ron Slay keeps folks at.
We got to have Hubs in here someday just to experience it live for himself. Maybe he can bring us some beans as well. So recruiting news coming up this weekend, and you guys calling it the David Sanders Day. Going to officially make his announcement. Hubs, I think we all know where that's going. What could this do in terms of just continued momentum in recruiting for Tennessee if they land the big guy?
Well, I mean, he's a cornerstone piece for the class. When you look at where they're at, and when you're talking about a tackle is one of your high-profile pieces. I mean, everybody's looking for an offensive tackle to protect the quarterback. They're looking for somebody to get after a quarterback, and they're looking for a quarterback. It's one of the three most important, most significant pieces to roster assembly, and David's polished. I think David is a guy who, wherever he goes, is going to be ready to play early in his career. I think he's got the mindset to step in and play. I think he's highly driven, highly competitive. I think he's a great fit for your program. He's going to represent you the right way, and he can play. I mean, it's great to have all those other attributes, but the bottom line is, can you play? And David can play, and he is an extremely talented football player, and I think Tennessee has done a terrific job in recruiting him. I think George McIntyre has done a wonderful job in building the relationship with him, and the relationship with those two guys has been about more than football. They're going to be friends for life wherever the two end up playing football. If it's together or it's not together, because they have a genuine friendship. They're very comfortable hanging out with each other. When the two have come to town, it's not been about film room, or it's not been all about football. It's about hanging out and being friends. And I think that's helped make David really comfortable in Knoxville, and made his family really comfortable in Knoxville. The relationship with guys like George and current players on the team, I think that's part of the reason, and a big part of the reason why Tennessee has carried the momentum with David Sanders for a while now.
Brent, on the way out, Tennessee made a lot of headlines this week in the way that they are adding Pilot to the field, how they are getting a large sponsor with a lot of money coming in, but not have to change the name of the stadium. It kind of the first team to really do this in this specific way. I know you guys wrote about that in the War Room at VolQuest.com. For you, though, what stood out and what makes this deal so unique as Tennessee kind of blazes a trail in what they were able to do with Pilot this week?
They sold naming rights, but they didn't give up the name, which is, how do you do that, right? That's so unique and so different. And, I mean, you're going to see Pilot. You've already seen it on the mic flags at press conferences. The logo's going to be on the field. The signs are up on the east side, on each, on the home of the Vols sign. There's one on each side, but it's unique in that everything from a tradition and a historical presence about the name of that great cathedral is unchanged. Yet they're getting the non-traditional corporate money that, quite frankly, you have to have in the big business world of college athletics right now. That's why Texas, who plays in Darrell Royal Stadium, is trying to figure out, how am I going to get multiple seven figures a year for my stadium and not take Darrell Royal's name off of it? How can you do that at Bryant-Denny Stadium? You're not taking Bryant-Denny off the name of the side of that stadium, right? So Tennessee has got everybody else around the country going, how did they do that? They sold naming rights. They got naming rights money for corporate sponsorship to their stadium without giving up the name, which is really incredible to be able to do that. And I give the Vol Network and Steve Early and Brandon Parks and that whole crew, Danny White, and obviously the people at Pilot, a ton of credit for making sure that the name was not changed and not touched, and then they get the corporate money everybody's looking for, because you've got to find as much non-traditional revenue in college athletics right now as you can find, because the cost of business is not getting cheaper, and it's never going to get cheaper. We're not going back to the 90s when tickets were $26 and a coach was making $750,000 a year, or maybe $1 million a year. That's not ever where we're going again. So you've got to have more money every year, and you can't just be going to the fans going, hey, instead of your ticket being $150, now your ticket's going to be $350. You can't keep bleeding them dry. That's why you got to have the corporate dollars. That's why this one's so big.
He is Brent Hubbs of All Quested on 3, joining us Friday at 7:20 here on the show. Now a great time to get a VolQuest subscription as we are Carl Pickens days away from football time in Tennessee.
Carl Pickens, nice.
I will not tell you.
He changed it.
This morning, Brent, I have.
Where were you before?
So here's the thing. So I try to do.
Were you Kelly Washington?
I was not. I try to do the most random name that I can think of.
AJ Suggs?
Keep going, Hub.
Keep going.
It's not a good name for some off the field reasons.
Well, what? I mean, come on, man. It's I don't know, 8:30 in the morning, whatever time it is. I've already helped Ramon. What do you got here?
I went Jansen Jackson days until football time in Tennessee.
Yeah, that was a bad pick.
That was a bad pick.
And Hubbs, I went down a rabbit hole.
I try to pick the most random name I can think of and not go with the name brands first, and that was a bad choice.
Bad? Yeah, okay. Moving on. Let's go back to Kelly Washington.
You asked.
Pickens days.
Hey, I walked right into it, okay? I'm good. It's on me. I walked right into that one. I own that one, all right? I own that one. At some point in time, I mean, he didn't want to tell me. I should have accepted it at that point. I did not need to know.
He tried to tell you, just eat the hot dogs. You don't want to see them be made.
Hey, Brent, for what it's worth, I looked up the Vice article and you're quoted.
I did too.
I have quoted it.
Yes.
Exactly right. I am. That was when I got that phone call. Do you want to be quoted in this story?
Hubbs, you did a good job, though. You did a nice job.
I don't think we're selling VolQuest subscriptions out of that program.
No, I don't think so. Excellent as always. As much as I try to mess it up, Brent Hubbs, fantastic as always. Brent, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, sir. Brent Hubbs with us. More next as an NFL player, a former Titans target, finds a new home. We'll talk about that next.
Genesis Diamond's most extreme values on diamond engagement rings is coming to an end. Yes, you have until this Sunday at 5 p.m. to get the price of a lifetime on a certified GIA diamond ring. Response has been incredible also. People have driven for hours to buy like a dealer buys. All GIA certified diamond rings are on sale. A full 20% discount off Genesis' amazing everyday value price. It's making me stutter over here. It's so great, all right? We're talking about values you never thought possible, from a half a carat up to 20 karat diamonds, all handpicked for maximum brilliance and all graded by the most prestigious gem lab in the world. Don't be surprised to see other jewelry store owners and diamond dealers shopping alongside you. They'll have rounds, radiance, pear-shaped, ovals, princess cuts, cushion cuts, emerald cuts. Genesis has the largest GIA diamond ring selection you've ever seen. And now through Sunday, you can take advantage of this rare buying opportunity, and it's limit one per customer. So get the Genesis no middleman direct importer price minus an extra 20% on all GIA diamond engagement rings now through this Sunday at Genesis Diamonds. They're located in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Friday morning rolls on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW 104.5 The Zone. Coming up on halftime of the program already. 615-737-1045. How you join us? Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. Justin Simmons is headed to the Atlanta Falcons. A longtime target, maybe for Titans fans. I don't know if actually for the Titans themselves. Free agent safety who has kind of been the belle of the ball on the market. However, what have we said for weeks? When a guy stays available for that long, past training camp starting, they're waiting on somebody to get hurt. That way they can get the dollar amount that they want in order to go to that place. That's exactly what happened. Falcons lost safety DeMarco Helms. Enter Justin Simmons. 1 year, $8 million.
Yep.
Nice.
That's an expensive price for a safety this late in training camp, too.
It is.
Good for him for holding out and waiting on the team to get desperate. They've also traded for Judon in the same in the same week. So that tells you where they are. He's got the right agent with the right amount of patience to get the job done in this situation. So good on him. And again, for the folks that wanted him here in Nashville, look, that's a hefty price right there for a 1 year rental, man, for what I think it's going to turn into. Atlanta's trying to win. The NFC South is open.
It's
I feel
open.
like
It is
Yeah,
bad.
it's open.
yeah, it's bad. So defense is one way to get it with watching what the quarterback in Carolina looks like. Young Baker. I mean, is he going to bake a little bit more this year or what? Like, it's wide open what you're asking him to do right now.
Young Baker
Young Baker. Baker Mayfield.
Young Baker.
in Carolina?
No,
No,
I'm
in
talking Tampa.
Tampa.
I thought you said Carolina.
Yeah.
No, I said the young
That's
quarterback
young
in
Bryce
Tampa.
Young.
Bryce Young.
Any guesses on
got
Atlanta's
you.
win total over under for this year?
Atlanta,
Yeah, how many do you think they're
4.
Oh, I'll go a little higher. 6.
I was going to say 7.5.
They are currently the expected winner of the
Yeah.
NFC
Yeah.
South at 9.5 wins.
I don't really know if that's going to happen.
It was updated
might.
yesterday.
That surprised me.
Oh,
I mean, I
they
guess
play
with
the
the
Panthers
schedule.
twice.
Yeah, with the schedule. With him, Raheem Morris taking over as head coach, defensive-minded guy. It's like good get for them with Justin Simmons. I mean, you had to pay a little bit more of a pretty penny for it. It's not overwhelming, but it's still at this time of year, like you mentioned, a little bit more pricey. But he's proven, like he's older, but he's also still been really good at this age, what he did with Denver last year. But this is kind of an interesting team because you hear about the ads on defense. He's a defensive-minded guy. Then you think about the offense. You're like, okay, Kirk Cousins. We all know Kirk can be good.
Brother Kirk.
Coming off of that Achilles injury. And at any point, do they turn to the rookie in Michael Penix Jr., who they took a kind of a roll on in the first round? And they've got offensive pieces, too. It's a really interesting team. I think now they have to kind of live up to what I think some are saying, not hype, but clearly the favorite, like Bert said, to win that division.
The interesting note on the Falcons offense is that they have drafted all of their starting offensive linemen. They didn't have to bring any of them in free agency, and 4 of those 5 guys were drafted in the second round or higher.
Okay.
That's big.
They were pretty
Interesting.
good last year up front. They were one of the 10 best offensive lines pretty consistently, according to Pro Football Focus.
And now they have first-round picks at literally every position on offense. First-round pick at wide receiver, tight end, running back, and quarterback, despite him not potentially playing week 1.
What I love about this is the fact that Love Island's a big thing right now. It's a very popular program. If there's a woman in your life,
never
she's
heard of
probably
it.
watching Love Island.
I've watched all of them.
And the Indianapolis Colts essentially dated everyone on the island and went home with no one. The Indianapolis Colts dated around so much. They wanted Justin Simmons. They wanted L'Jarius Sneed. They've wanted Quandre Diggs. Nothing.
You know who they're crying for now? Bring back Stephon Gilmore, please.
I know.
Like they're just like anybody that's left. We
Yeah.
just
I
want
know.
somebody. It's like a kid the day before Christmas. Can I open one present? Can I
Sure.
have something?
It's a real shame.
You're right. You're like, sit down somewhere.
So, not going to the AFC South, going to the NFC South. And I'm all right with that.
Yeah, I was like, Titans probably fine with that one.
615-737-1045. Yesterday, J.C. Latham evaluated his performances against the Seattle Seahawks. We'll hear what he had to say, and we will run through the bullet points on the one-on-ones. Which offensive lineman won, lost, or tied their one-on-ones with Seattle Seahawks defensive linemen yesterday? We got that for you next.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson. You have heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV from YouTube, I should say. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit fanduel.com/Kayla, that's Kayla, to download America's #1 sportsbook. Remember, have to be 21 years or older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit is required. Bonus issued a non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire in 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See all terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call Tennessee Redline at 1-800-889-9789.
What's going on? 801. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Titans take to Nissan Stadium again this Saturday. Lee Company countdown to kickoff at 3. Titans Radio takes over at 5 o'clock with everything you need to know before preseason week 2. Head coach Brian Callahan said that Malik Willis would get the start at quarterback. He also provided a little rationale about why he would not be playing the starters.
No, the starters won't play. There may be a couple of guys maybe that play, but our starters will not play. Obviously, 2 really hard, physical, heavy days of work for them. No reason to put them in the game. We got our controlled work here against their ones. Really, that's the benefit of the joint practices is the amount you get against these guys. It's controlled. But no, our starters, should not expect to see many starters, if any at all.
A monster 24 hours for the Atlanta Falcons defense. First trading a third-round pick to acquire Matt Judon from the Patriots. Then signing Justin Simmons to a one-year deal worth $8 million. Simmons now adds to the defensive backfield with A.J. Terrell and Jesse Bates. Bills Pro Bowl linebacker Matt Milano left Tuesday's practice injured. We now know that he tore his bicep and will be out indefinitely. Milano will undergo surgery on a torn bicep with the hopes that he'll be back later this season, targeting a December return. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second half of the show here already on a Friday morning edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW, Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling with Robert Walsh, our esteemed producer, making the show happen behind the glass. 615-737-1045. How you talk Titans with us this morning, and joining us in 20 minutes to do exactly that, Steve Palazzolo of the 33rd team. He has been closely watching Titans and Seahawks joint practices and has some interesting thoughts on J.C. Latham and this remade Titans offensive line. Always love catching up with Steve, with Sam Monson. Excited to follow their new show that is moving over to the 33rd team. Those guys do as good a job as anybody on the podcast space covering the National Football League, and looking forward to catching up with him in studio coming up in 15 minutes.
Nice. He'll be with us for a little bit extended time, too.
Yeah, hopefully we can get him through, man. Looking forward to that conversation with him. He pointed out something. I'm not going to steal his thunder, but we were out at practice on Wednesday, and he pointed out something to me, and immediately it popped. So as much as I've been frenemies with PFF in the past and everything, Steve and Sam do good work, man, and congrats on their new move, moving over to the 33rd team. So
love it.
Whatever you get, we can have the conversation with him because he can do the analytical and the digestion.
That's right.
Of what's going on.
All right, I have in my notes page of my phone very official, unofficial notes from Ramon Foster, who is giving me win, lose, or tie on Titans versus Seahawks one-on-ones. Shall we?
Let's do it. Yes.
Rep 1, J.C. Latham beats Uchenna Nwosu. I believe that was his only win of the period, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
His only clear win of the period.
Clear win.
Second rep, I don't always have who they were going up against, but again, it was ones versus ones pretty much every time there was a starter up there. I made note to say Big Sco.
Peter Skronsky.
That is Ramon Foster's name for Peter Skronsky. Big Sco not only wins, but draws a penalty on the Seahawks.
Sure did.
Oh.
Number 3, Lloyd Cushenberry, win. Dylan Radins against Leonard Williams, tie. Nicholas Petit-Frere, loss. John Ojukwu came up, won a rep. Daniel Brunskill was knocked back, but a slight win, according to Ramon Foster.
He redirected the pressure right there, yes.
Nicholas Petit-Frere came back up, lost again. Andrew Rupsich, great rep, Ramon Foster says. Had a great win. Big Sco, great rep, again, Ramon says. Lloyd Cushenberry, another win. J.C. Latham gets beat inside on 2 straight reps as the period continued. Repsich again was good.
Yeah.
The positives were Skoronski, Rupsich, and Cushenberry. The negatives were Nicholas Petit-Frere and J.C. Latham within that period.
And this is one-on-ones.
This was big man one-on-ones yesterday between the Titans offensive line and the Seahawks defensive line and edge rushers.
And that play right there can also be a situation to where you look at and digest Dylan Radins, right? Going up against Leonard Williams. That's a tall feat right there. Will, you guys saw him too, right?
That guy's a beast.
Yeah, he is a beast, Kayla. And I was just like, just watch Radin's response to it. His ability to anchor down, his ability to redirect in those moments right there again. And I said it's somewhat slanted because the defense can get off. There's, nobody really there. The only advantage the offense have, in my opinion, is the snap count. And at that point right there, there's no lineman to the next you supposedly, and you usually have help right there. And that's one of those things on JC also, to where I'll give just a little bit of pushback on myself to say, I think coaches have been in situations before. I said this on 3TL. We've had guys that coach wanted to see a reaction out of, right? That we go into the practice and coaches of the mindset, and he's called us over to the side. Coach Tomlin. It'll be myself, Marquise, DeCastro, a couple other guys too. And I specifically remember this situation for Alejandro Villanueva. We're in training camp. We're trying to see if Al's going to be the guy. And me, I'm going to always take up for my teammates. To a fault, I'm jumping in front of whatever's swinging, okay? That was always my mindset. So Coach T came to us before practice, and he said, hey, today his day, and don't y'all dare save him. We're like, why? I'm playing the whole role. What you mean save him, Coach? And Coach T was like, don't jump in front of this today. Today is his day, and he going to have to get it. And it's like, all right. And he sent All-Pro after him, Pro Bowl after him. Go again. Do it again. It's those type of situations that happen. And I somewhat feel because how good Seattle Seahawks rushers can be, at least person to a person. He ended up getting, what's his name, Will Awansu? Ended up getting
Uchenna Nwosu.
That was that first? Okay.
Beats him. And then next thing you know, what happens? We got a candy bar over here, guys. And then Leonard Williams goes over and does the exact same thing. Leonard Williams also does this in team period, too.
Which
I got a feeling.
Put a little extra into that, too.
That either cause an effect of it or you just wanted to see the results of how he will react in moments where you knew he had deficiency and he wasn't going to win. He got put through the ringer this past couple of days. And maybe it was just an isolated him problem where he's got to stop the inside pass rush. Or maybe it was Coach Bill Callahan saying, hey, Coach, I appreciate what you guys do over there. Work this young fella because we need him to speed up his process of developing. You don't play the Seahawks, but you're going to get a whole lot of work out of it in practice. And it also probably leads to the idea of why you don't need to see him in games. You reevaluate, have a reset practice today, sit back, recover, and get your mind ready for next week. What could be a dress rehearsal moment for this offense. But looking at the way it kind of unfolded, wouldn't you think it was just J.C. Latham's day the last couple of days? And I hope this disappears by the kickoff of the season.
Yeah, and you always warn us about moments that these rookie tackles or rookie guards are going to have. And there's so much pressure put on J.C. Latham. Even Lloyd Cushenberry yesterday, when we spoke to him, says we're depending on him this year.
Facts.
Like this,
he got to grow up quick.
He's got to grow up quick, and this line's depending on him as all the other guys. But they have to start to figure things out. And J.C. Latham, I will give him credit. He was so composed yesterday.
And he
after
didn't back
that,
down from it.
Not one bit. He was like, yeah. It happened, and guess what? I knew it was going to happen because I'm a top 10 pick. They're going to come after me. They know that, there's talk about me, and rightfully so, because he's one of the best that was drafted this year. But he got a dose of it, and he handled it like a man and took it as a man. He didn't get, hurt by it while we're asking these tough questions one after the other. Instead, he said, I'm really excited to get into that film room, knowing that I've got 2 days now of work that had happened and has happened against a pretty good front. And by the way, a new look that he's seen as well. So I really liked, I guess, Ramon, for me, just the way he handled it. It wasn't pouty. It wasn't like he's going to get and try to figure it out. Now, whether or not that happens, that's another story. But at least he handled the situation correctly.
So he's a rookie who got introduced to the NFL the same way Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese did to the WNBA.
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying? Can we acknowledge that all rookies who are high-profile people go through this? Mm-hmm. Is that okay? Did I step the line right there?
Nah.
We're good?
I think that's fair.
This is what happens to people who have high profiles, top 10 picks.
Yeah.
I just wanted to correlate that to all the talking heads that speak, no. If you got a profile, I'm going at it. And J.C. Latham got put in the mixer this week by a guy like Leonard Wilson, and they were this close to fighting on the field.
Rand had to pull
I
him
love
back.
the pushback of that, yes.
J.C. Latham was asked about that yesterday. When asked about the little scuffle that started, he was right in the middle of it, the work with the Seahawks, and the fine specifics that he and the rest of the Titans were given about not fighting. J.C. Latham had this to say yesterday.
No, I mean, it was a good play. I drove him a little bit, was finna finish him. Powell kind of, helped him get his momentum back. And, I mean, like I said, it's going to get chippy out there when you're, alpha dogs and you're competing out there. So, yeah, I mean, you just gotta load the game.
Was it made pretty clear? His hand was
no, I wasn't studying that.
Was it made clear to you guys not to fight, and did you guys show some restraint out here?
100%. Yeah, we all the days are blending in together. But 2 days ago we had our jog through day, just going over the stuff. Team meetings, first thing we put up there, the fines and what's going to happen if we get into a fight. What's the repercussions for the individual and all that stuff. So we made it a really big deal to really show some self-control and discipline.
How much would it? How much it would have cost you?
I think like 50,000, individual 200 for the team. 10 out of 10. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, they got to see things that they haven't seen before. We got to see things we haven't seen before. We got to put a live action situations in, just competing. And, like I said, I mean, we played them this week, but, I mean, we're going against our own guys. We've been doing that since OTAs and in the spring. So it's like, what a guy does, what's his counter, first, second, third, fourth, fifth move, Going against these guys, I mean, it's not really, it's film on them, but it's not like we're game planning enough for this practice, So we get a chance to really just go out there and compete.
There is J.C. Latham.
Yeah.
It was good, 50,000 for a fight. God.
Also, Roger McCreary, and then Traylon Burks confirmed it. I guess it was also said by Brian Callahan, if they were to have gotten in a fight, the starters would have had to play in the preseason game. What we had heard similar earlier on this season this week from a coach.
Vets
Gerard Mayo.
Yep.
Don't want to waste their time on a game that don't pay them.
Coming up next, Steve Palazzolo from the 33rd team joins us in studio for the rest of the third hour of the program. Tons to discuss from Titans Seahawks joint practices and where he sees this team in a very interesting AFC South. That's next.
Hey, it's Kayla and Ramon from our friends at Window Nation, and they've got a great deal going on right now. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, plus pay nothing with no interest for 2 full years and an additional $250 credit if you sign up now. And this is a great time to sign up because maybe you've noticed your energy bills have skyrocketed this summer because you're pumping that AC. And if it's going right out the window, literally, that means your money is as well, Ramon. And our friends at Window Nation can help you out.
No doubt about it, Kayla. And the weather's about to change too, man. Hot days, cold nights can cause caulk to crack, seal failures, condensation, a lot of issues around your house. So I'm here to tell you this, though. All they do are windows. They've installed over 200,000 windows last year. That's 40 times more than the average window company, with 96% of them having no follow-up service. Simply, you can trust them. If you don't trust us, trust the over 20,000 online positive reviews that they have on Google. Simple as Kayla just told you. You can buy 2, get 2 free. Plus, no down payments, no interest, and no payments for 24 months. Plus, an additional $250 credit. Simply reach out to them at 866-90-NATION or go online to windownation.com.
You ever wonder why so many pro athletes go and use stem cell therapy? Because it works. I'm Ron Slade, retired 14-year pro basketball player, and I needed to get this done. After I went through my entire career riddled with injuries, I needed therapy, so I went to Kellum Stem Cell Institute out in Franklin. Why? Because they're the stem cell specialists. They can be yours too. They're the stem cell specialists of the Tennessee Titans. You know why? Because it works.
Make an appointment today with Kellum Stem Cell Institute.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Rolling right along Friday morning here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will RKW. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, joined in studio by our good friend Steve Palazzolo with a new venture at the 33rd team, along with our other good friend Sam Monson. Steve, what's up, man? Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate, being back here in the studio.
Absolutely. So before we talk Titans, before we talk the joint practices this week, you've got a new venture. You guys, same show, new outlet, new feed, all of these things. Tell us where people can find you and Sam.
Yeah, new show's called Check the Mic. And so wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on YouTube. It's just very much the same show. Sam and I have been doing the same show for about 10 years. Really breaking down every single NFL game on a Monday morning, the day after, previewing every game on a Thursday. And we were just excited to have a new opportunity with the 33rd team. So it's called Check the Mic, and we hope everybody goes and subscribes and go finds the new feed because, we're just going to carry on. We have all sorts of new guests from the 33rd team. They're all connected to all former NFL players and executives. So we're excited to just have a new opportunity to continue to grow.
Nice.
Cool.
You have a little bit more flexibility to do what you want with this opportunity too?
Yeah, more flexibility, some ownership, which is great.
Nice.
But Sam and I, for whatever reason, we appreciate all the listeners and viewers through the years. They've taken to our analysis. He's like a curmudgeon-y Irishman, and I'm like the soft-spoken tall guy. And for whatever reason, people have taken to us, and we're excited to just keep it going.
I love it. Sam has taught me just from following him about rugby. So when, U.S. women's rugby exploded in the way that it did the Olympics this year, I felt 1% more educated just from following Sam on Twitter.
Yeah, that's like one of I played minor league baseball, so I always make baseball references. He always make rugby references,
100%.
and that's like our connection. And he knows nothing about baseball. I know nothing about rugby.
It works out well.
It's part of our shtick,
I love it.
I will say, like, you two guys, your names, that's what I think of PFF. Like, I know Collinsworth has this backing behind it, but like you two have been the faces of, so it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment for myself, and I'm sure a lot of others too.
Yeah, I mean, like, we only started it because we only had 7 or 8 employees about 10 years ago. And we just started talking about our data because, people didn't know about PFF. So we just had this opportunity to try to educate and say, hey, when Ramon has a great grade, you might not be watching Ramon. You might not know how well Ramon's playing. So we need to talk up the guards, right? That's like our number one example is giving love to guards and tackles in the NFL. And then it just kind of took off from there, right? We're going from educating people about PFF to, just kind of growing.
So, Steve, let's start with the offensive line for this Titans team. And it has been fortunate for us that offensive line is the talking point of this Titans team. And we've got an 11-year NFL veteran in the interior of the line on this show. When you watch Titans and Seahawks this week, Steve and Sam have both told us, like you guys have said, the Titans just need to get to league average on the offensive line to have a chance to be above average on offense as an entire unit. What do you see that's different, that's better from this Bill Callahan coached offensive line?
Well, that's the first thing is I trust Bill Callahan. So having him in the building, I think, is massive. And Ramon, you know this. There's a difference in offensive line coaches. You don't have to name names or anything like that.
Mike Munchak, I'll throw him out. You trust that.
Munchak, he has a track record of everywhere he goes, he is getting the most out of his linemen. And I think Bill Callahan has that. And that might take time. That doesn't necessarily mean we're seeing it week 1. That's the first thing. I just trust Bill Callahan with my offensive lines. J.C. Latham, of course, is the guy we're watching the most. I think anytime you're flipping a guy from right to left or vice versa, there's going to be an adjustment period. It happens all the time, right? Guys have success doing that all the time, but there's an adjustment period. I look at Penei Sewell, who's now one of the best right tackles in the NFL. Sure. Go watch some of his first reps coming out of Oregon when they moved him to the right. He looked out of place. There was just a couple reps, right? You're used to repping the same way over and over and over again. And if you're off just a little bit with your technique, you're getting beat in the NFL. So I think we saw some of that at practice with Latham. Inside moves or any sort of inside counter. Those were trouble for him at Bama. They're trouble for him, it looks like, at camp right now. But I like Latham a lot. I think he'll get there. I like Peter Skoronski at left guard. Lloyd Cushenberry really improved greatly over the last few years with the Broncos. He was a nice signing. So it's not as bad as it was the last couple of years, but it still might take a little bit of time as Latham gets used to a new side and you get the chemistry needs to be built there.
When you look at that situation, you brought that up. I told Will and Kayla on the break, I was like, I got to give credit what credit's due. You mentioned the inside move on J.C. Latham before I saw it against Seattle. And I brought this up to them earlier too. I don't know if that's Coach Bill Callahan saying, hey, it's not going to be his day and attack this because we need to show him against his teammates that you can do it against them, but against a guy that don't care about you and is trying to beat you, it showed up numerous times, though, Steve, to where are you worried a little bit about it? Maybe. Or is this an adjustment?
I mean, it was the same thing I had in my notes over and over again watching him for 2 years at Bama. It was, counter moves, inside moves. So now do you have to slide protection his way? Are you going to send the guard to help him? It does make you think, do we have to adjust to this right now? In addition to just flipping sides, right? Because even if he was just playing right tackle where he's familiar, Latham still kind of had problems with this coming out. So I'm concerned a little bit at the beginning. Now, offensive linemen, using PFF data, because I'm still going to use PFF data. I still think it's great, and I think it tells good stories. PFF data shows us, I've said this before, that offensive linemen sometimes take 2 or 3 years before they really get there. And they are the position that makes the biggest jump in year 3 or 4. So that's not exciting for 2024 for the Titans. But off the top of my head, Penei Sewell struggled early. Andrew Thomas struggled for the first 3 quarters of his rookie season. Now he's one of the best left tackles in the NFL for the Giants. So you got to have patience with your offensive linemen. Some do hit the ground running and they're great, but other times, it might take half a season or even a season to get comfortable.
In that same context, too, I've dubbed him a nickname, Big Skull, Peter Skoronski. We had a back and forth yesterday of what you would ideally do with a guy like Peter Skoronski. You want to enlighten everybody to that one?
Yeah, I'll talk about it. I mean, he was a left tackle in college, and I thought he was an outstanding left tackle at Northwestern. And what happens is, you get your arm measured at the combine, Ramon, and if it's under 33, the scouts, they're really sharp. They're like, I see less than 33, you must be a guard. You have to be a guard. You can't play tackle. And there's a little bit of truth to that. The short arms are a little bit more difficult to play tackle with the long defensive ends. But you have to look at his entire game, his footwork, his core strength, his ability to handle power. Skoronski, I think, could play left tackle. And tackle is such a valuable position in the NFL. No offense to guards, I'm of the mind, if you can find a starting tackle, you give him an opportunity. And then if he fails, if it is too much for him, if he can't handle length, if he can't handle Harold Landry, Arden Key in practice, then all of a sudden you kick him back into guard. So I would have probably given Skoronski an opportunity. And the other example I'll use, Luke Gedeke, he was a tackle. He's a tackle for the Bucs, similar sub 33-inch arms. He struggled at guard his rookie season, moved to tackle last year for the Bucs and had a lot of success. And so on paper, he had a guard body, but he was better tackle. And I think Skoronski will do both really well. And the debate is, do you want to have a serviceable left tackle at worst or a really good guard with Skoronski? I would consider the left tackle move, and then you'd have Latham a little bit more comfortable maybe playing right tackle.
Side.
Right. And speaking of the right side, Steve Palazzolo with us from the 33rd team. He's been out at joint practices the last 2 days. What's your initial thought on that? I know you haven't been able to see those two, and Nicholas Petit-Frere and Dylan Radins, work a ton together, but in the 2 days you have seen their work, because this is kind of a plan that they had to throw out there in a way. And I don't know if it was their first plan to at least put Dylan Radins starting at right guard.
Yeah, Radins is interesting because he's right in that area where he could take that jump, right? That 3 or 4 year jump. He could be ready, and Petit-Frere is right there as well. I know, again, using PFF production numbers and everything, Petit-Frere has been at the lower end of right tackles over the last couple of years, so he would have to take a big jump, I think. Radins, I think, can do it, though. I think he moves pretty well, especially with some of their wide zone stuff. I think he can really provide value there, at least in the run game, and he's improved. I mean, I think I've seen him improve over the last couple of years.
When it comes to Will Levis, let's just start, with that, in the offense not ending on a great note yesterday. And then practice ending a little bit early, too. I'm sure those players were kind of like, okay, this is not the greatest feeling going into that locker room. But in 2 days of work, can you take a lot from Will Levis against this defense? Because clearly Seattle's corners and their defense in general, it looks pretty good for this time of year, going up against the offense that's still trying to figure things out.
I was really impressed with Seattle's defense, first of all. And I don't think that was a knock on Tennessee, but Mike McDonald's coming in. It's a new system. Ramon, you kept looking at me like, who's 27 on Seattle? Tariq Woolen, 6'4", 220 with one of the best combines in NFL history as far as movement goes. And he's in year 3 looking really comfortable. So those were tough corners to throw on. And you don't have Nuke Hopkins out there. And look, I think Calvin Ridley is a good wide receiver too, But once you make him the one, and once you put a little bit more pressure on him, maybe not the case. I mean, you saw that last year with Jacksonville. There were games where he was great, games where he disappeared. So all told, I think it was a really good Seattle defense. I thought Levis looked good in some of the short area passing game and everything. And I think that's a big part of his game. He was so aggressive last year. By the way, I see he didn't learn to slide this offseason.
No, he didn't.
Correct.
Not yet.
Just lowered his shoulder week 1 in the preseason. But he saw the end zone. He's trying to get in. Yeah. So, I mean, but it's just like his whole personality is trying to balance his aggressiveness with taking what's there, with sliding. And it's fascinating sometimes when a quarterback's personality shows up on the field. It's kind of how he plays.
He's just too busy just making fragrances.
Oh,
he's got to be learning how to slide at the time that he's making mayo-infused perfume.
I had no comment on the mayo stuff.
I was waiting for something.
I've got nothing. It reminds me, remember the old George Mirasan ESPN commercial?
Yeah.
He had, like the cabbage cologne.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was good
I
stuff.
smelled it. It was all right.
The mayo?
No,
It honestly wasn't that bad.
It honestly
Mirasan?
is. You get lemon up front and there's like a sweet finish to it, man. That sound like a perfume.
This Will
specialist.
number 8
That's
did
not
have a surprising decent smell to it.
It did.
He let us sample it, and surprisingly, it was
Surprising.
not
It wasn't
mayo.
terrible.
Oh, it's not
smelling.
mayo. Okay.
Isn't that wild?
It was
They
more
sell
lemon.
It like it is.
I
Right.
think Levis said it smelled more like a hotel lobby,
Yes.
which is a good way to describe it.
I like
Hotel
lavender.
I hope you got some samples.
Yeah.
Bert bought a bottle.
Yeah,
2 bottles.
literally. Steve Palazzolo with us here in studio, 33rd team. So as you look at this division as a whole, and we talk about this team, and it got a lot of older players, but if this team can stay healthy on paper, you feel like there's some positivity around this football team right now going into the fall. Where do you place the Titans in a very interesting AFC South where obviously it feels like there is a clear front runner in Houston, but then after that, it's kind of a toss-up?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a wide range of outcomes with this team because of how they built, especially on the defensive side of the ball. All that turnover. I love bringing in L'Jarius Sneed, especially for, what is a third?
Yep.
I mean, really good press man corner. We saw what he was able to do for the Kansas City Chiefs. Chidobe Awuzie coming in at corner. Now, I don't know what Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams do. You bring in a Seattle safety tandem. I have more faith in Diggs maybe than Adams. Adams was talking yesterday. They were having some fun
Big
on the field yesterday.
But I mean, it's a wide range of outcomes because you have a veteran laden team. So even as Nuke Hopkins gets hurt, I mean, that's like the downside is as these guys get older, they might be a little bit more injury prone. But man, if you can get some of these veterans play into their capability, you have a chance to really get the defense looking pretty good. And then offensively, I'm fascinated to see what Levis can do when all those playmakers are healthy, bringing in those veterans. I mean, that's what you want to do for year two in a quarterback, improve the offensive line, give him weapons to throw to, and see what he can do. And again, I think that balance of Levis throwing the ball down the field to good playmakers, knowing when to check it down, to take the underneath stuff, as he learns that balance, again, I think the Titans have an opportunity to have a really good season.
We are a very pro Tajay Spears show.
Yep.
I know they added Tony Pollard into that backfield as well, and they've got two legitimate backs now instead of it being the Derrick Henry show. Are you as high on Tajay Spears as a lot of other people are? Because I know the PFF numbers loved him last season.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Spears. I mean, I think I'm a fan of Pollard too. I think he gets a little knock like, oh, you gave him more of a workload last year. It started out slow. He was coming off of injury. I may have dropped that stat on this show before.
Yeah,
like
did.
his second half, missed tackles forced were completely different. So I like the idea of a potential 50-50 split, hot hand, whatever it might be. They're similar players, but I think they just put pressure on the defense. They're two guys that put pressure on the defense. You watch how the Lions play offense, and it's like, all right, we have a tough-to-cover tight end, and we have a slot receiver, and we have two guys with behind the defense type of speed, and we also have Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield. You have all these different difficult to cover, difficult to tackle type of players. So I think Spears and Pollard both have a chance to make a big impact.
You threw so much out there. I had this lined up about the inside linebackers, but then you bring up Detroit and Jahmyr Gibbs and how they've built it up. I had this conversation yesterday with our evening show crew, man, 3HL. And Don Davenport asked the question, we were talking about exactly what you said, O-line development, team development, free agency signings and stuff like that. And I was like, Babs, it takes about 3-4 years. Like, is sustainability of winning and changing your culture, as bad as Detroit was, are they the model moving forward on how you build it up and just say, we're going to take our licks, we're going to get what fits our squad? And now Dan Campbell, to me, is looking like not a kneecap biter, but a dude that said, think I'm a fool in the circus and watch me cook.
I think what Detroit's done, I would call them the model. I don't know if anybody, maybe the Niners. I was trying to think of this recently. How many teams literally built it brick by brick and went from picking first or second overall, then they got better and they got better and they got better. And Detroit did it really systematically. They had a couple pieces on the O-line. They added more. They thought about trenches first. They built inside out. Philly did it. So I'm trying to think of who did it without a massive quarterback change.
Okay.
And so Philly, I mean, they did a really nice job because they went to the Super Bowl, broke down a little bit, built it back up again. The Niners, Shanahan always feels like a cheat code, but they went from nothing, built it back up. But the Lions, I mean, they took Jared Goff, right? I mean, Jared Goff was just like, of course, he's just a middle-class quarterback. That's all he is. And now they've turned him into a $50+ million quarterback in part because of what they've built around them. And so I just love how Detroit built inside out and then just started adding all the flashy pieces. They needed to get better in the secondary. Now they've attacked that. So their needs essentially dwindled year after year until you look around and it's like, wow, this team is really deep.
So is that also, you mentioned the 49ers, Rand Carthon being from that tree also. Like, do you look at that pathway and say, well, I know the projections next year, the Titans might pick in the top 5. So do you look at Rand Carthon's situation as the way 49ers built theirs back up? And we mentioned Detroit, like he may actually have a delayed plan on getting this team to where it want to be.
The trouble with trying to replicate the Niners is they have one of the top 2 or 3 players at so many different positions, and they got them, like Deebo Samuel in the second and George Kittle later in the draft. And I know they got Ayuk later in the first, but Purdy is the last pick in the draft. I mean, they got so many good players all throughout the draft, and they're all superstars. So that, I think, is tough to replicate. But the Niners have had a really good, sound process. And, of course, Shanahan, I think, is a cheat code offensively, always ahead of the game, always maximizing his talent. So that's the tough part to replicate.
Right. And I think when Chad Brinker was on the show the other day, he had mentioned, too, just they're going to have to start rebuilding through the draft. There were so many kind of missed major first-round picks in this organization for the last few years that this is really important. This is where you got to start building.
Yeah. I mean, I know the A.J. Brown thing is a hot button issue here. But like since that point, you started to see, okay, the talent, the young talent on this team just started to get depleted over the last couple of years. So it does take time. Every team wants to build through the draft, but I know Tennessee needed to sprinkle in these free agents to make sure they're competitive this year. But of course, the long-term plan is to always build from within, and I think that needs to be. You need to find a way to draft 9 to 13 times a year. Always trade down, add volume. And then you start to pick up 3 or 4 players per draft, and before you know it, you have this nice nucleus to build around.
We got a couple more minutes with Steve. I want to ask him about the Titans' analytics efforts. You've got some insight into kind of where the Titans are going and a member of that personnel group as we will wrap up hour number 3 of the show coming up.
Ripping up hour number 3, Steve Palazzolo in studio with us here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will of the 33rd team. Great Titans and NFL discussion here to wrap up the 8 a.m. hour. So, Steve, you are familiar with Sarah Bailey, the new Titans analytics expert. And the Titans, we were talking off air, are essentially going from, in some ways, like 1960s football to 2040 football in a lot of ways, it feels like. What can you tell us about just the personnel the Titans have in the building and the way, in your mind, they're trying to build this analytics department kind of from the ground up?
Yeah, so I know a little bit of, I know Sarah and what she did with the Rams and how integral she was. I mean, if you look at some of the Rams drafts, they did a lot with in-game athleticism. They did a lot with, I'm not giving away any secrets or anything. There's videos out there, Sean McVay, Les Snead talking about Puka Nacua, and when they were trying to draft him later, and they're talking about his athleticism, and they've got numbers to tie to that, right? So they have ways of looking at the game analytically that they leaned into with the Rams, later in the draft when they were taking shots on draft picks. And, Sarah was a big part of that. She's really sharp, really mathematically sound, we'll say. And they brought her in to reshape this entire, part of the company, basically, right? So I've heard Chad Brinker call it a startup, and, he's trying to put all the pieces in place. And I think that's the key. It's the Moneyball stuff, I think, made us think that there's too much. Scouts are over here and analytics are over there, but there's so many organizations that do it well and that combine both. And, scouts should scout. Analytics people should do their work and analyze in the way that they do and model the way they do. And then it's on Rand Carthon, right? It's on Rand to come in and process all that information to make the very best decision, because that's all it is you're adding more information, into the equation. And the more information you have, theoretically, the better decision you can make. And it does seem like the Titans are making a big investment to make sure that they have the best information possible.
When you look at how you just broke all of that down, like the success rate of it, you feel like it's slanted better for teams that dive into this type of stuff?
Well, people that use my draft model, I know, because I got my own model, right? And I know the success rate would double or triple. So, GMs, give me a call and we can talk about that. But I mean, look, it is about. It's again, the information should help your success rate, right? And it's like every single time you have a question, whether it's we were talking off air a little bit about Caleb Farley, and he had this injury risk. You can have a discussion. Hey, there's an injury risk there. He's got this chronic back injury, or you can actually model it and put numbers to it. And so, to me, I always lean toward give me the numbers, put percentages on this. Let's think probabilistically. And I think those are the smart decision makers who think probabilistically, just like fourth down decisions. Nothing's ever going to be 100%, but if you could do something that's going to hit 75% of the time instead of 40% of the time, you just keep making those 75s, right? You just keep making those better calls, and I think over time you make better decisions.
Do you make an excuse for what happened to this team in 2020 with the draft of Isaiah Wilson? Like, legitimately, we couldn't interview him personally because of COVID? Or was there stuff in place that you guys knew, conversation around him as to why not make that decision to draft him?
I thought he was a third-round player on the field.
Wow.
So you're not going to ask. I mean, don't ask me.
I like that though. I mean, because we haven't heard everybody's opinion on this.
I thought production-wise. I mean, Ramon, there's not a lot of people your size in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of made Isaiah Wilson like, well, of course he's a first-round player. Dude's a monster and he moves pretty well or whatever. But I didn't think his production said first-round pick. So right off the bat, I was like, well, he's a third-round caliber player from a production standpoint, developmental type of tackle. I don't know you have to not being able to really interview people and get their background and all that stuff. I mean, teams care about that at all. I don't know if it's an edge because every team does it, but you have to do it, right? You have to make sure that this guy's not going to be a complete bust. I hate using the word bust, but it's what Isaiah Wilson was.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's probably some to that, but I also think there was an on-field evaluation that maybe was a little bit too aggressive.
When you look at the AFC South real quick and the quarterbacks in this division, CJ Stroud has clearly gotten the nod because of what he did last year, has to follow it up. But then you got Will Levis, you got Anthony Richardson, which we right now have not heard a lot of, at least down here, because we're paying attention to Titans camp. And then Trevor Lawrence, who got a new deal, but I think some might say he still has, more to live up to there.
Yeah, Lawrence does. I think there's a little bit more to his game that you want.
Yeah.
It's when you get labeled a generational prospect. I think we all picture, Caleb Williams is going to deal with this. When you hear generational, you know who the best quarterback is right now. It's Patrick Mahomes. So you instantly paint this picture in his head. Well, he has to be at least as good as Mahomes. He has to be in Josh Allen territory. And that's not really realistic. Andrew Luck never was actually the top 3 to 5 quarterback in the NFL at any point, even though he was very, very good. So I think that's what Lawrence is. Very, very good. Could have used some help last year. There's those videos going around of like 3 minutes of end zone drops and everything, including Calvin Ridley, by the way. But I think there's a little bit more to Lawrence's game, but he was next up to get paid. When you're next up to get paid, you're probably going to get paid. And Lawrence, I think, deserved it. I can't wait to see what Anthony Richardson does, just because he's just another fascinating prospect, a guy completing 54% of his passes in college, but the freakiest athlete that we've ever seen enter the NFL. I think he can do a ton as a runner, but he's so inexperienced. He's also really athletic in the pocket, right? He's an athletic passer, not just a runner. And that's what Josh Allen did, right? Which was turn himself into a really polished passer. It doesn't mean everybody turns into Josh Allen, but Richardson has that type of ability. And then Stroud, his big thing this year, like we've seen, how many flash in the pan players have we seen where you crown them early? Not taking anything away from Stroud, but you have to adjust now. The league has a year to adjust. Yeah. Exactly. And I think he'll do fine. I think Stroud is going to be fantastic, but it's about sustaining success now for Stroud. I think he'll do it well. They built around him, and that's why the Texans look like the favorite in the division.
Anthony Richardson was the most athletic freak in the NFL. Now it's Joe Milton.
That's right. I knew you were going to say that. My goodness.
Joe is 3rd and 10, lowering his shoulder on an 8-yard run, taunting the defender as the punt team comes onto the field last night. That's what he did.
The Joe Milton experience on
it is amazing.
Football.
You see what I'm saying?
NFL fans are getting the full Tennessee fan experience of watching Joe Milton the past few years. Steve Palazzolo has been our guest. We just tweeted out the link to his podcast with Sam Monson. Check the mic with Steve and Sam on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Really looking forward to following along. And congrats again on the new venture. We're excited.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Steve.
Hour 4 of RKW coming up.
It's Ramon Foster here for Two Rivers Ford, man. Everywhere I go, I see Ford Broncos all over the road. They're here in our parking lot, man. They're all different. Soft tops, hard tops, big men, the Harrison style with the white tops, black diamond version, the Raptor, or the small Bronco Sports. There are so many options, color combinations, so many different packages and trim levels. That's why the Two Rivers Ford team invites you to get to know the Ford Bronco. This is an open invite. You don't need to be in the market for a vehicle. The Two Rivers Ford team has a team of Bronco experts on hand to introduce you to the Ford Bronco, answer your questions, let you test drive, show you the on-road and off-road capabilities, the technology, and the accessories. And remember, the Two Rivers Ford sales team doesn't work on commission. They're there to educate you, to answer your questions, and introduce you to a really cool vehicle that you might not know a lot about. That's one of the reasons people love doing business with Two Rivers Ford and why they're the South's most trusted Ford dealer. So go see my friends at Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet. It's just 7 miles east of the airport, and get to know the Ford Bronco like I will today. So Two Rivers Ford is your Ford Broncos headquarters.
9:01. Good morning. Happy Friday from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Titans take to Nissan Stadium again this Saturday. Lee Company countdown to kickoff starts at 3. Then Titans Radio takes over at 5 o'clock with everything you need to know about Titans Seahawks. Head coach Brian Callahan said that Malik Willis getting the start at quarterback this weekend. He also provided his rationale for not playing the starters.
Our starters won't play. There may be a couple of guys maybe that play, but our starters will not play. Obviously, two really hard, physical, heavy days of work for them. No reason to put them in the game. We got our controlled work here against their ones. Really, that's the benefit of the joint practices is the amount you get against these guys. It's controlled. But no, our starters, should not expect to see many starters, if any at all.
A monster 24 hours for the Atlanta Falcons defense. First trading a third-round pick to the Patriots for Matthew Judon, then signing safety Justin Simmons to a one-year deal worth $8 million. Simmons now being added to the defensive backfield of A.J. Terrell and Jesse Bates. In the Bills locker room, Bills Pro Bowl linebacker Matt Milano, who we know got hurt on Tuesday. Now we know he has torn his bicep and will be out indefinitely. Milano will undergo surgery on his torn bicep with the hope of returning later this season, targeting December. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Nine a.m. Welcome to the fourth and final hour of Ramon, Kayla, and Will. The 20th hour of a great week here on RKW. A star-studded week of programming live from Titans training camp today in studio. We give you our weekly training camp installment of Stock Up and Stock Down. Who has helped themselves? Who has hurt themselves, maybe literally, physically, at Tennessee Titans training camp over the last week. That is coming up. Your Titans questions and thoughts at 615-737-1045. Anything you've got for us, we'll do our best to answer it for you.
Yeah.
Over the final hour of the week. Titans and Seahawks coverage right here in the Zone begins tomorrow with the Lee Company countdown to kickoff at 3 o'clock. Titans radio at 5 p.m. Kickoff at 6. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, Robert Walsh. If you're watching us on 104.5 The Zone TV this morning on YouTube, we ask that you please subscribe to the channel. Or if you're not watching and you just want to get on your smart device, like, hey, wait a minute. Let me go to youtube.com/1045 The Zone TV. We've added a lot of subscribers this week. We'd like for you to join that party.
Yeah.
Well over 10,000.
I would also like everyone in the chat to shame Ramon Foster for taking off that bucket hat. Why did you take you didn't like the bucket hat?
You didn't like that?
I was trying
when
to be
Steve came
professional
in?
with Steve coming in.
Oh, you think you're going to fool him? He stood there with
is.
you for 2 days at practice, and you think you're going to fool him into thinking you are professional.
Hey, y'all keep bashing me. He left me a nice parting word. Said, hey, our fans loved you on the show with me, Ramon.
Look at
We'd
that.
love to have you again, okay? I'm wanted in this world,
Did you say
okay?
I need to get paid for that?
Well, Kayla, pay is always a part of it. Don't never do nothing for free twice, okay? You feel me what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. So keep it up, Bert, okay?
That bucket hat looks great, man.
Yeah, I know
So
you got you one too. Shout out to
I did
Princess.
get one too. Princess
Did you?
Hot Chicken, the
It
original
is
hot
kind of
chicken.
cool. Somebody in the chat said you looked like the neighbor from Home Improvement.
That's
that
my
you
guy.
never saw his face.
That's my dude.
Yeah.
I love that show.
Exactly.
Absolutely love that show. That is one of my childhood shows that
Tim,
I
the Tool
see.
Man
Oh
Taylor.
my God.
Can you give us a...
Yeah. There it is.
Thank
You
you.
heard us good.
Ramon
There
Foster,
it is.
9:05.
Here I am. I'm always playing your games, man. God,
He sets you up every time.
With this, man. Either way, we was down there talking O-line stuff.
He was
again,
great.
so
Yeah, that was really
very
fun to have
solid.
him in studio.
Again, check the mic with Steve and Sam. That is a must listen. They do a great show, and we are always smarter for having Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson on the program. Got to get Sam back on now as well, coming up in the next few weeks. But I think it's interesting insight into how the Titans are building their analytics department. And if you missed that explanation from Steve as well, again, you can check the Ramon, Kayla, and Will podcast feed as soon as the show wraps up. But I think those guys do a really good job of making the analytics and the numbers make sense in a way that is digestible for the general football audience. My pet peeve when we talk about football is when people will just say analytics in this broad, fancy term for numbers. And these guys do a good job of breaking down the practicality of what that means, because analytics are not the primary source. If you're writing a research paper, they're kind of the secondary source.
Sure.
That puts the whipped cream on top of the sundae. It's not the ice cream.
No, it's not the ice cream at all, man. And Chad Brinker, when he came on with us, said they're going to live in that world of analytics and numbers and evaluation, right? But at the end of the day, there is a feel component to it, to where this just matters more to us. So the coach understands this a little bit more. There's a fine line between beauty and brawn, right? Like, we want it to look good, to know that, hey, we're setting ourselves up in the best possible way. But the same way we speak about little small things, as far as them picking Tavondre Sweat, like, you got to acknowledge at certain points, like, this a big man game. Or at the end of the day, you go to the old Marshawn Lynch quote, right? You know how you beat a person? You just run through their face and you just hit them. You know what I'm saying?
Is that what he said?
Oh, well.
Well,
Paul Mason, can I say what he said?
I know, I was going to say, can we actually say? Yeah.
Hey, my man, love that sound, man. But that ain't what he said, Will. But he told you to break a man's soul.
If your kids aren't in the car, look up on YouTube what he actually said.
Hey, kids, earmuffs real quick.
That's right.
And kids, if you're in the car, look up what he said when you
Ask your mom and dad.
I love it.
Oh, yes, indeed.
One question in the chat. Here you go. On YouTube. Start, bench, cut.
Yep.
Kyle Phillips, Jaquan Jackson, Kearis Jackson.
Yep.
Was Mason Kinsey in there?
Bench, cut. Start Jaquan. Bench, Kyle. Cut. No. Start Kearis.
Oh, you just totally flip-flopped.
Oh.
Bench Jaquan. Cut Kyle.
Okay. I'm going to go.
And the reason I'm benching Jaquan is because he's a rookie. He's got potential.
Okay. It's a hard one between the first two, Jackson and Jackson. Because of Jaquan's hot streak that he's on just with everything, whether it be the return game or helping out and, at the wide receiver position lately. And I know he's not going to be a starter in that realm, but I would say I'll start him. Kearis, which I've liked in the return game specifically, I'll bench him. And it is what it is, folks. Kyle Phillips has a hamstring injury, and there you go.
When did this happen?
Yesterday. Lord. It's Groundhog Day. Kyle Phillips has a hurt hamstring.
Oh, my God, dog.
So
Brian Callahan this week alluded to keeping 6 wide receivers. Very vaguely. Doesn't mean they're going to, but he used it as a hypothetical in answering a question from reporters. So those 6 would be, obviously, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Treylon Burks, Nick Westbrook-Akine. So you literally do have those 3 guys plus Mason Kinsey fighting for one spot.
Yeah, you do.
And then maybe throw Bryce Oliver in there, although I would put him at the bottom of that hierarchy to make the team. He's a strong practice squad candidate.
Yeah.
He is. And I saw somebody go at Buck Rising, who's on after us yesterday, but I roll my eyes every time you guys mention NWI.
Really?
I'll say this.
Did you see what he responded?
No, I didn't.
He responded and said, we will continue talking about NWI till you draft a player better than him.
And that I love that from Buck, because we've seen him. The dude has rung the bell every single day.
He's a good player.
He is a good player.
He's a 4th wide receiver, 5th wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, why are we complaining about that? I don't understand that.
So I mean, there's always going to be the obsession from fans to have the new shiny young. Like, it's the same reason why we're so willing to replace a redshirt sophomore who's been in a college program with the new freshman who has a 4-star rating who just got on campus.
Who got it?
The backup is right. Like, it's why fans are upset. Why is Christian Harrison starting in nickel? I want Boo.
It is.
But it's like we're not asking him, or he's not going to be, at least at this point, a 1 or a 2 or a 3 even. So you got to have those guys that are sturdy, that are consistent, that are always out there. when you need them to be. Isn't that NWI? Didn't I say that was my cup of coffee every morning?
Yes, Kayla.
Absolutely.
We're Starbucks, okay? All right. You hear me? Eighth and roast is what we are. We're Dunkin' out here, okay? Like, we ain't going to play. He's not old grandmama coffee on the back burner, okay?
He's not
But the thing is, last year, in the last couple of years, NWI has played that 2 and 3 role. Some games had the number 1 role, right? Like, so either way, that was a solid 5, Will, and the fact that you have to figure out the 6th guy potentially is a good place to be for a group that is reshaping itself.
And that will make tomorrow's game very interesting. I also think they could just keep 7. And I think the 6 and 7 would be Kearis Jackson and Jaquan Jackson. But at some point, again, like, what other value are those guys giving you? Like, if Tajay Spears is the kickoff returner, where he's still listed on the depth chart, is there really a reason to keep Kearis Jackson? Because you have a backup slot then in Jaquan. So I struggle with how that last spot or last 2 spots will be used. And I still, as much as y'all don't want to put him in there, y'all being the FNM Bank chat and the fans who talk to us about the Titans, Mason Kinsey is right in the thick of this competition as well.
I was just going to say, are we overlooking it again?
He has earned the right to be right in the middle of this. He catches the ball when it's thrown to him.
Yeah, when it's thrown to him.
People just don't want to admit it. I don't know. I don't know what to think of it, guys.
Like, every time we are out there, like, Mason Kinsey continues to make plays.
He does.
Yeah.
He does.
Again, we all get bored of the same undrafted guys that just keep coming up and keep coming back and keep coming back. Like, but he's still earning the opportunity. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 cycles to make an active roster.
And see, it's one thing for a coach to love it. It's another thing when you look at the profile of what fans expect their team to look like. That's the separator right there.
Right.
They want Tyreeks. You know what I'm saying? They want those type of guys. And coaches want guys that are available and reliable. And that's what he's been in camp.
Whose stock is up? Whose stock is down as the Titans head into the second preseason game? We'll tell you about that. We'll get Brandon in Lebanon. Take your Titans calls at 615-737-1045 as Hour 4 continues next.
Prince's Hot Chicken, the original hot chicken. They know a thing or two about hot, so they're bringing you the hottest moments from RKW throughout the week in a segment I like to call Prince's Hot Mic.
It was asked if Ramon owns cowboy boots, and he said no.
Hear me out on top of this, okay? On top of this, it's not like they're just any kind of regular boot. Like, this is, okay, we're going out a little bit, got on some nice jeans and a cool shirt, bam, Chelsea boots, and they YSL.
I don't care if they was LSY.
Hot Mike's Hot Chicken, Prince's Knows Hot. Prince's Hot Chicken, the original hot chicken.
RKW hour number 4, Ramon, Kayla, and Will on the phone lines at 615-737-1045. Let's go to Brandon in Lebanon, talking Titans and giving you stock up and stock down. Who has helped or hurt their cause this week at Titans training camp? Good morning, Brandon. What's up?
Morning, Zoo Crew.
Good morning. How are you, Brandon?
Man, it's Friday, bro.
Yes, sir.
Hey, so one rule of thumb, don't go to Wilson County Fair tonight. It's going to be like a pack of sardines, and it's hot outside.
It's going to be very crowded.
Terrible. Go during the week.
Okay.
Rule of thumb.
Okay.
That is a pro move.
advice.
That's a big brain move for the Tennessee State Fair.
Definitely making that one.
So my question is for the Titans is, I know how his day fared yesterday, and I know there's a lot of skepticism and everything because of the interception that he threw. But I've got a lot of faith in him. But as far as, like, not just me being a person that has faith in him, I know there's tons of other Tennessee fans that are, pushing for him. But as far as, like, a backup position for second string, who is the viable option right now between the two backups that we have under Will Levis in case Brian Callahan decides that he's starting to have a downfall and they decide to bench him? Do we have a legitimate number 2 right now?
Thank you, Brandon.
Appreciate that question.
That number 2 is Mason Rudolph. No question.
And Ramon, you speak on this especially because you've known Mason Rudolph and followed his career even recently when he was with the Steelers, which he's had some good body of work that he's put together in the last, couple of years as a backup.
He has. Mason has grown from what I've seen. From a guy that came in his rookie year, couldn't set his feet, having the ability to not really play, and last year given an opportunity. And here's the other thing, too. Mason wasn't signed back to Pittsburgh till a little bit later also. He knew Mason was going to be there because he didn't have much film out there. You knew he's got the arm talent. You know he's got the brain for it. If you ever sit down and talk to him and engage him, you can tell the guy is sharp. It's a matter of one playing experience that has to take place for a dude like him and weapons. I think last year, seeing the end of his maturity and growth, you saw what he was capable of doing with that Pittsburgh team. Helped them get into the playoffs, too. Right. On the road in a couple of places. Beat the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Also, so my perspective on it is this: Mason's a quarterback that's right for this team and this quarterback, this starting quarterback for where it is right now. He is good enough to where you feel settled as a fan and as a coaching staff, right?
Yeah.
But he's also unknown enough to where you don't have to worry about him taking over Will Levis's spot.
Right.
Right, which is important.
A fine balance of letting Will Levis prove that he's a franchise quarterback. But who's that? Did Brandon just call in?
Yes.
If Will Levis craps the bed, right, and the decision has to be made to move forward or move away from him, the most hypothetical situation we can be in right now. I think this coaching staff feels fine with saying Mason's our guy for the rest of the season until we figure out what's next.
It'd have to get really bad, but
would.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like if it got that bad or an injury happened, right? You're not just holding your hand, twirling your thumbs on the quality of your backup. That's what Mason Rudolph is right now. But me knowing Mason Rudolph,
right,
having the ability to ever snatch it away from him, I think there's a strong possibility that he would try to. But here's the thing. He's not brought in for that, and he's got to respect his role right now.
And I would say overall, if you're just thinking, like, can we feel comfortable about the backup right now? From what we've seen, overall body of work in training camp from Mason Rudolph, I would say, yeah. Let me just say that all 3 quarterbacks struggled a bit against Seattle this past week. And Steve Palazzolo, who was in studio with us earlier, said it. Seattle's defense looks pretty damn good this early on, too. So give them a little bit of credit of what they brought here. But you can't just take the last 2 days of maybe Mason Rudolph not having the best performance because I think overall the body of work for him throughout camp has been pretty good. So I at least I feel comfortable right now with him as the backup if something were to happen to Will Levis.
And a couple of questions on YouTube in the F&M Bank chat where, again, you can chat directly with us. Says, stop that. Mason does not have a good body of work. The caller said viable option. Well, in 4 games last season, Mason Rudolph completed 74% of his passes. I would say that's a pretty viable backup option. In his career, mind you, Mason Rudolph has completed 64% of his passes. Yeah, that's a backup quarterback in the NFL.
Backup quarterback.
Yep.
3,000 yards in 21 games. Yeah, he's backup quarterback. Like, what do you want him to be freaking Joe Montana as your backup? What do you expect?
It doesn't happen that way.
He completed 64% of his passes in his career, 74% of them last year, had 3 touchdowns, didn't throw a pick. He had a 118 quarterback rating. Yeah, it's a pretty viable option. He took him to the playoffs last year. Malik Willis is the 3rd quarterback. Mason Rudolph is the 2nd.
Yeah.
The Titans will continue to say this is a competition. I do not believe that is true. I don't think they're lying to us. I think they're trying to make this a competition. It's not. Mason Rudolph is the backup quarterback.
Well said, Will.
Thank you. Stock up and stock down. Who helped themselves this week the most? I think there's one name, and then it's everyone else. Do we want to all say it together on who helped themselves the most this week?
Yeah,
Chance
on 3.
Campbell.
Hold up. 1, 2, 3.
Jaquan Jackson. Oh.
That's what I was waiting for. Yes.
What'd he say? Bert.
I said Jaquan Jackson. Bert said himself.
I said Bert.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course, Bert.
Well,
You're up
you
there.
have Bert's dirt and Burke's dirt.
Yeah.
You
Dude,
got the Titans president telling you can
Yeah,
have some
like
of the
you're-
dirt.
I also got to pitch my Mayo sunscreen idea to Will
Exactly.
Levis.
Nice.
Did you?
He was not a
Did-
fan.
Oh, he wasn't?
I did not hear about
shoot.
this.
I
I think
didn't
he,
hear either.
I think he just had a tough practice. You know what I mean? Lucas had already read him a poem. It was hot.
Sure.
He came off the field, so he was kind of just like doing the nice thing. But my people were going to get to his people, and I told him a moderate cut of 25%.
That's rare. That's fair. That's honestly fair.
Was that before or after Lucas read his poem to Will Levis?
It was
Yeah.
after. It was the last thing right before he got off the table, and he just wiped his brow and left.
I would
Yeah.
say Lucas buttered him up. Lucas mayoed him up instead of using butter.
Oh, boy.
Have I told you guys my pitch?
No.
Not to
Oh, yeah.
bring this to a
The
screeching.
sunscreen,
Stock
right?
up, Bird. Yeah, explain to
I
us
heard
why
it,
your
so you
stock is
tell
up.
these guys.
So here's how it would open up. It's Will Levis under center. The camera's facing him, and he goes, "In football, protection is everything." He takes the snap, he drops back, he looks back, but instead of a football, it's sunscreen in his hand.
Yep.
And he opens the cap and
Yeah.
right in his hand. And he's like, "So for the best protection, I choose Hellman
Yep.
sunscreen." And he was like, "I don't know if mayonnaise has the same properties as." I was like, "No, it's not really
Shut up,
mayonnaise.
Will.
It's not
Yeah,
really
come on.
mayonnaise. It's sunscreen, but it's a joke. You know what I mean? They're both white."
I thought
So,
it was great.
That's got to be racist.
Yeah.
They'll both
Anyway.
talk about whites.
I know,
tonight.
That
right?
was my pitch.
My goodness. I thought it was a good pitch, and I'm sorry. And maybe Will just is cologned out and mayoed out this week.
Yeah, he doesn't need me right now. You know what I
That's
mean?
what it
He
is.
doesn't need me right now. Next year, when Hellmans are like, "Come on, you want that lifetime supply of mayonnaise? Come on,
Exactly.
where's your idea at?" Then he'll remember old Bert. Then he'll need Bert.
And he'll come a crawling.
So why Chance Campbell over Jaquan Jackson is the guy who's helped themselves the most this year
I
or
just
this
think
week?
the carryover from last week into this week with heated joint practices, we didn't hear any negative things out of him. I think he had an interception at one
did.
point
Yesterday. Yes, he did.
Yeah, and with the lack of bodies out there too, because Kenneth Murray, I believe, was out yesterday.
Hamstring
tightness. Yeah. Otis Reese also had a good day out there. But I think if you were going to be Campbell and you're stacking those days, like we say, God, those draft words again, stacking those days, you can't ask anything more from a guy like him. Who's stacking days. But, Will, I don't disagree with you on yours either, because on the opposite side, that guy, Jaquan Jackson, doing the same dang thing.
Yeah, I agree. Jaquan is helping himself a lot. But for a guy that wasn't on my radar to talk a whole lot about, I'd say stock up, especially in a joint practice setting for a guy like Chance Campbell. Again, he took the ball away from Sam Howell yesterday, and he had interceptions during the past week against his own team, the Titans. Like, he has been Johnny on the spot. And in the game, having the ability to get an interception then, like, he's had a whole lot of carryover within the last, 6 days. If we're counting 7 days, if we're counting what happened last weekend. So, again, it's probably more the element of surprise for me for him. Mm-hmm. And he's delivered in a room right now where it's got a lot of opportunity. The fact that Cedric Gray is not out there right now
It's huge for him.
is helping him emerge for a roster spot. It's going to be tough still, I think, but stock is up for me.
Is there any way that Chance Campbell could take over a starting job when the Titans go to Chicago and take on the Bears from Jack Gibbons?
Jack ain't hurt himself enough for me to make that conversation.
Yeah, I would say no right now. I think Gibbons is still a guy they believe in. Now, whether or not that lasts the whole time, guys, because he could make some mistakes. We've seen him not be great in space before. There's some slow movement sometimes we see out of Jack. I wouldn't be the first to say I believe he's the starter, the whole entire year by any means.
And here's the thing. This is his third year in the league, so it's not like Chance Campbell's a rookie or a young guy. Like he understands this world.
Right. He had the injuries and stuff he's dealt with too.
So it's there for him. He's for the element of surprise. I wasn't expecting us to be seeing him make these type of plays.
I think for me, it's Jaquan Jackson just because of the explosive plays he is continuing to create now with Mason Rudolph versus just with Malik Willis or just against the Titans' third-team defense. He's doing this now with more twos to me. And I'm just really interested in the dynamic of the Titans really finding a diamond in the rough at wide receiver because I think Jaquan Jackson has the potential to be a diamond in the rough for them at wide receiver to the level they have not had in a day 3 wide receiver since Tajay Sharp. And Tajay Sharp was that coming out of that camp when he was drafted by the Titans out of UMass on day 3 of the draft because that season it was us talking about him more so than we were talking about Corey Davis, who obviously was banged up at the beginning of his time as a Titan and obviously was a early first-round pick. But to me, the athleticism and the quickness of Jaquan Jackson really jumps out when you watch him. And I just think he is a good fit for what this offense wants from its wide receivers.
Yeah, I've been impressed with Jaquan Jackson. I don't know as much. I don't know if I was expecting this much by any means just because of where he was drafted. And I think mostly because we knew he did a lot of the special team stuff at Tulane as well, right? That's what he was kind of known for there as well. But he has been, good point there, Will, by saying, he has been integrated with the twos a bit and still being able to keep at that level the consistency and making plays. I think that's the biggest thing you look at with some of these guys in training camp. He's not going and making a play and then disappearing for 4 days. It's almost like every day we're talking about Jaquan Jackson making a play in camp or in the preseason, and now with the joint practices, the same type of thing. He has been a pleasant surprise, and I just think the attitude, whatever they're teaching down there in Tulane in terms of the ability to just kind of be a pro from the jump, like Tajay Spears was last year too. The way that handles himself is really like pro level when he's a rookie and a lower draft pick as well.
And we'll see what he can do. I mean, he never had a season over 554 yards in college. You're projecting a lot of that athleticism into someone who you think in a different kind of system and in a defined role could result in a lot more production. I mean, you go through his stats at Tulane. Last season, he only had 26 catches.
Yep.
In 10 games and 439 yards. In 2022, that really good Tulane team that was in the Cotton Bowl against USC, 33 catches, 554 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 8 touchdowns as a sophomore in 2020 and 31 catches. So the projectability of a Jaquan Jackson is interesting to me because he is so athletic and so quick, but he's not been a really productive wide receiver in college. And I'm interested to see how an NFL system and scheme can better suit his skills. Stock down, though, guys.
A couple guys on this list from I just got 2 today. Quandre Diggs exposed a little bit yesterday. Didn't like that when he's supposed to be the guy to keep the top over the top of the defense. And another young fella, man, I was expecting to see a burst out of, man, and Bert gave me a little intel on him yesterday, but Quinn Bohanna. A lot of size. Harley hadn't even mentioned his name, and it's an opportunity for him. You be the same type of player that Tavondre is. Like, we're talking about a second, depth chart type of guy that's, he's done nothing that I can see.
And I'll say with Quandre Diggs, we spoke to him after, he has only practiced for the 4th time. So I'll give him a little bit right now in terms of just kind of figuring out communication and working recently with this defense because he hadn't been out there for long. But yeah, I don't think he looked great by any means facing his former team.
I acknowledge that.
Yeah, but I don't disagree with you on that, Ramon. You guys know the obvious one for me. It's Kyle Phillips. And look, I'll be the first to admit I had him making the roster when we did it last week initially, but I've got to completely change that. When I heard hamstring, I was like, "Are you kidding? You've got to be kidding me!" Because he was doing fine up to this point in camp. It's not like he was doing anything to not earn a spot or at least try to compete for a spot towards the bottom of the roster. But then this is what happens with Kyle Phillips. At a snap of a finger, the injury comes into play and everything changes.
All right.
And sure enough, it happened again.
Oh, shoot. Here we go again. It's Kyle Phillips for me, too. And I think it's not only the injury. I think as Jaquan Jackson's stock rises and as Kearis Jackson's stock rises, it doesn't mean great things for Kyle Phillips because he does not have the special teams component to round out his versatility and his reasoning to be on the roster. Kyle Phillips was brought in to be punt returner and slot receiver. Well, now you have a new punt returner and slot receiver. You got a couple of them, in fact, who are making plays in Kearis Jackson, in Jaquan Jackson, and in Mason Kinsey. At this point, Kyle Phillips, for me, is on the outside looking in for making this team. Jack Gibbons is another one for me. It just wasn't overly impressed with very limited action we saw again in the preseason game. That's probably a little harsh. But if we're thinking of anyone whose stock isn't as high as it was a week ago, I would go with him. And I would say Malik Willis. I don't think Malik Willis has continued the momentum that he had created in the first 3 weeks of camp. Since the preseason game on Saturday, a couple of interceptions, some late throws. Malik played very, very well the first 2 weeks of camp. I've not seen him take another step. I've seen him maybe take a half step back at this point, which again is harsh. It's a very small sample size, and our stock up, stock down segment is not gospel. However, it internalizes and kind of contextualizes 1 week. And in this 1 week, Malik Willis has not been better than he was last week.
Could he change your mind in terms of at least the stock going back up if you see a better performance in this preseason game?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
I also wanted to mention, we didn't mention it yesterday, but for those who just need to get a clear answer on this, because Josh Wiley went in early yesterday during one-on-ones. He had hit the ground and hit his head. So I guess they took him in for precautionary reasons. So we haven't heard if he has a concussion yet. But on the note of tight ends, guys, this position still continues to boggle my mind with how much good competition is there within that room. Because, I mean, you got Josh Wiley, who's been a consistent force. Chikakonkwo continues to have some up and down moments, but I foresee him making this team. But then you've got Nick Vannett, David Martin Robinson, who continues for me to be a guy whose stock is up, and Thomas Odukoya. Like, this is a really deep room, and I didn't even name all of them. That's a really fascinating situation this year.
It's really boggling my mind on who's going to be the surprise keep and a surprise cut this year.
Yeah.
There's a lot of options, man, on those two topics.
Yeah.
I think the tight end thing is interesting, too, because do any of them convince you to keep a fourth tight end?
Right.
I
know.
I don't know if they do. And I don't know if David Martin Robinson or Thomas Odukoya have the capability of unseating Nick Vannett's spot either.
Exactly.
On the roster. However, again, you have vested veteran guys who, again, if they make the roster week 1, their contract is fully guaranteed. Could you make the argument that maybe Nick Vannett is not a guy that makes the roster week 1, considering his experience in the league, and you go with Thomas Odukoya, who can be your blocking tight end week 1, and then you add Nick Vannett to the roster week 2. Right.
That's an interesting point there.
He's one of those guys who could be left out in the cold on the initial roster. Really, it's your week 2 roster. That is your real, like, okay, this is our 53.
Right.
For that reason of having vested veterans who get fully guaranteed deals. So after, 3 years of service time?
And you could keep DMR possibly on the practice squad. He might have enough film out there, but maybe you do and you just see what you get.
I think if you're looking for a Vannett replacement, though, Odukoya is the more
the blocking.
The blocking tight end that would replace Nick Vannett in a pinch for a week.
Right.
If you decided to go that direction. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got options. 615-737-1045. We'll replay you something from Brent Hubbs earlier this morning that was particularly interesting. A couple of keys for Tennessee football in our conversation with him earlier this morning. And I've got a list for you guys. I'm going to hijack the microphone to talk soccer for 30 seconds. That's next. Wrapping up the show and wrapping up the week on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, RKW. It has been a very fun week with a lot of fun interviews.
Right?
On the Zone Podcast Network, you find Ramon, Kayla, and Will every single morning under Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Hit the subscribe button while you are there. It helps us a lot, and it helps you as well because it means you do not miss any of the interviews. Quickly on the way out, guys, the one player you are most excited to watch tomorrow is whom?
Malik Willis.
Okay.
Period. Malik Willis.
Malik Willis.
I want to see him get a first stab at it and see what the flow and play is like. We know he's going to throw it. I want to see pressure, how he handles it. Malik Willis.
Okay. Caleb?
Man.
Hope I ain't steal your thunder right there.
No, you did. I'm trying to think defensively who I would go with for some reason to mix it up. But I just keep on coming back to Jaquan Jackson, and I'm going to do a feature in the pregame show on him. So I guess I'll stick with Jaquan Jackson because maybe continuing to see what he does in the return game, but also now that you're going to see more of the 2s and 3s out there, what can he do with those quarterbacks as well?
Chance Campbell.
Yeah.
My pick.
Carried over momentum.
See if he can continue the good stuff that he did last week.
Sure.
Interested to see.
No doubt.
All right, real quick. Arsenal 1, Manchester City 2, Manchester United 3, Aston Villa 4, Liverpool 5, Newcastle 6, West Ham 7, Tottenham 8, Chelsea 9, Brighton 10. Oh, I thought you guys asked me for my top 10 in the Premier League this year.
Sorry, I missed the top one again. Arsenal?
Relegation will be Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth, and Leicester City. Congrats, you're getting relegated to the championship. I've spoken. That's what's going to happen.
All I heard was Tottenham being that low down the list right there.
Yeah, Tottenham 8th. Tottenham 8th. Justice Schaefer will text me at 3, 2. No, Arsenal's going to win the league this year. It's going to happen.
Look at that. Look,
this is our year.
I am an adopted Arsenal fan just because that's the only place I've ever been to watch soccer in that part of the world. So I am an Arsenal fan.
This is your year.
I've worn the hat 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
I was this close to wearing my Arsenal jersey today. I will be at the pub having a Guinness before 10 a.m. tomorrow. Actually, before 9 a.m. tomorrow. For Arsenal and Wolverhampton Wanderers at 9 a.m.
You got a full day, Will.
You do got a full day tomorrow.
Honestly, watching soccer, drinking Guinness, then going to a preseason football game, that ain't a full day.
I'll take my youngest, go get his haircut to the barbershop.
I'm going to sleep in, boys. I'm going to sleep in.
I'm literally having a chill afternoon this afternoon. I'm going to cook and do nothing. That way I am ready to wake up at 8:30 and Uber to the pub. And just have a day.
It's going to be a great
and thrive.
Yeah.
Big day tomorrow for
breakfast beer.
All people watching. David Sanders Jr.
That's right.
12:30, I believe, Central Time. When he is expected to commit to Tennessee. Great segue into our chat with Brent Hubbs earlier this morning. Bert, if we have that from him. I thought it was interesting, the 2 keys he has for Tennessee football this year. This was good insight, and it got Ramon Foster very excited when Brent Hubbs said this.
Here's the thing: at every level, you can give up a big play in the run game if you misfit something, get out of a gap. Linebacker takes a false step and can't get to the hole, miss a tackle. If you go back to that Florida game and you had the one long run where the tackling, looked like Saturday morning in a rec league in 7-year-old ball, right? I mean, they were bad. It was a bad tackling play, and it was a 60-yard touchdown. The other 2 touchdown drives, one was a short field because of a turnover, and the other they gave up 2 3rd and 7s or 3rd and 8s on the drives. I've said this in a couple of different spots, and I truly believe this is the case. When you look at this team, they've got to answer questions in the secondary. What are the pieces? What do they fit like? They have to stay healthy. Who doesn't, right? I mean, all of those things that a lot of people around the country have right now in position battles or trying to shore up their 2 deep and all that. But the 2 stats that count for this team this year that will determine whether or not, in my opinion, what they are doing in December. Are they bowl prepping or are they playoff prepping? Okay, and I think those 2 stats, defensively, it's about winning on 3rd and long. They were a better defense last year in 3rd and 2 or less or 4th and short than they were in 3rd and 8. Okay, zone coverage wasn't very good. When they didn't bring the house on 3rd down, that they gave up too many big windows to throw the ball in. And then when they went man coverage, they gave up slants and different things like that. They have to win on 3rd and long. And then offensively, they got to be more efficient in the red zone. For all the talk about, well, they didn't have Jalen Hyatt, and Joe Milton didn't complete 60-yard passes and all those things, and those are all true. When you look at their red zone numbers last year, they scored comparing 22 to 23, they scored 25 less touchdowns in the red zone in 23 than they did in 22. 25. So you got to be able to finish in the red zone with Nico, with this offense, and then defensively, when you get in third and long, and it's the same way in the NFL, you get in third and long, you better get off the field, right, Ramon? And that's where Tennessee's got to win those two stats this fall. They have to take steps forward in those two areas if they're going to reach their potential.
All right, Hubs, I'm back, man. I'm off the ledge.
There you go.
Such valid points, though.
When just real analysis just gets Ramon Foster ready
that was
to
good.
That's all I'm
drop back in a pass set.
Because I know they're capable.
Yeah, we played that 3 times, didn't we?
The defense is sneaky. I'm telling you.
Fun show, fun week. Real quick, next Friday night, the Zone High School Football Game of the Week is back.
Ooh.
Week 1, Centennial at Franklin.
Okay.
Next Friday night on the Zone. Excited to add Brad Hopkins into our radio booth as our color analyst, and very excited for Lucas Panzica taking over with Friday Night Rivals.
Let's go.
As the play-by-play voice of the television game of the week. We will have the market cornered for you, and all of your great Zone High School football coverage will roll on a week from today.
Very nice.
There you go. That's the show. That's the week. The Buck Rising Show is coming up next, and Ramon Foster makes you smarter right now.
No doubt about it, man. Y'all know how we end going into the weekend, man. Call somebody you ain't talked to in a while. Apologize. This weekend and need buy somebody a random drink. Have a random conversation, but at all times, make it back to us on Monday. But must remember, your Twitter fingers and your mic are always hot.